The first wolf began screaming before the bells rang. Not barking, not growling, screaming. The sound tore through the royal kennels beneath Ashfang Palace, just as the blood moon rose over the kingdom. Chains rattled violently against iron cages, while servants stumbled awake in panic. One beast slammed itself repeatedly against stone walls, hard enough to split its own muzzle open. And above them all, hidden deep inside the mountain palace, Lyra woke with blood running down her neck. She sat upright in the darkness of her servant quarters, gasping for breath. The curse beneath her skin burned like fire. Again, it had been worsening for weeks, but tonight felt different, dangerous. The black-silver markings curling along the left side of her throat pulsed beneath her skin, as if something alive moved underneath them. Outside her narrow window, the blood moon hung enormous over the frozen mountains. Watching, waiting, Lyra pressed trembling fingers against the burning marks and forced herself to breathe slowly. Panic only made the pain worse. Always breathe first. That was what her mother used to whisper before she died. The memory barely existed anymore. Only fragments remained. Soft hands brushing dark hair away from Lyra's face. The smell of cedar smoke. A lullaby about wolves made from stars. Then blood. Always blood after that. A violent pounding struck her door. "Curse bearer!" a servant barked from outside. "Get up. The feast preparations have begun." Lyra wiped the blood from her throat before anyone could see it. "I'm coming. Hurry. Lady Seline wants the eastern staircase polished before the nobles arrive." Of course she did. Lyra rose quietly from the narrow bed and wrapped dark cloth around the lower half of her face before opening the door. The palace servants waiting outside immediately stepped backward once the moonlight touched her skin. Not obvious fear. Worse, practiced fear. The kind repeated so many times it became instinct. No one wanted to stand too close to the girl, marked by the forbidden moon curse. Lyra lowered her eyes and walked past them without speaking. The corridors of Ashfang Palace already glowed with torchlight despite the early hour. Nobles from rival alpha houses had arrived throughout the night for Prince Kale's engagement feast, and the entire kingdom buzzed with anticipation. Tonight, the future king would choose his Luna. Servants whispered constantly about which noblewoman would win him. Lady Seline of House Valor remained the favorite. Beautiful, ruthless, perfect for the throne. Lyra had never spoken more than 3 words to Prince Kale in her life. Still, she knew the stories. Everyone did. They said he killed his first rogue wolf at 14, that enemy alphas feared him more than war, that no woman had ever shared his bed twice, and that something about the prince frightened even the royal wolves. Lyra understood that feeling. Some people carried danger quietly, like storms hidden beneath ice. She emerged onto the eastern staircase, carrying brushes and a silver water basin, just as dawn light began bleeding across the mountains. The staircase overlooked the central throne courtyard below, where hundreds of soldiers prepared for tonight's ceremony. Black banners bearing the Ashfang crest snapped violently in the winter wind. Beautiful, cold, merciless, just like the kingdom itself. Lyra knelt beside the marble steps and began scrubbing. The stone bit into her raw fingers immediately. She ignored it. Pain was easier than attention. For years, invisibility had kept her alive inside this palace. Never speak too loudly. Never draw notice. Never let anyone see fear. And above all, never let anyone see the curse spreading. The cloth wrapped around her face shifted slightly as she worked. Cold air brushed the black markings beneath her skin, and pain flared again behind her ribs. Something was wrong tonight. The curse had never reacted this violently to the moon before. A low growl echoed suddenly through the courtyard below. Lyra froze. One of the royal wolves stood near the training arena, staring directly at her from nearly 50 yards away. Its silver eyes glowed unnaturally bright. Then, slowly, the massive beast lowered its head. Submission. Lyra's blood turned cold. No, 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 no. Royal wolves did not bow. Not to servants. Not to humans. The beast whimpered softly, like it recognized her. Then, another wolf beside it dropped its head too. A soldier noticed. What the hell? Fear crawled sharply down Lyra's spine. She stood immediately, gathered her basin, and turned to leave before anyone else saw. Too late. Well? A smooth voice called behind her. That explains the smell. Lyra stopped walking. Lady Seline stood at the top of the staircase surrounded by noblewomen wrapped in silver furs. Morning light glittered against the jewels, braided through her pale hair. Every woman beside her looked amused. Seline looked disgusted. You touched the royal wolves again, didn't you? She asked softly. I didn't touch them, but they reacted to you. Lyra remained silent. That was safer. Seline descended one slow step at a time. Do you know what the court says about you now? She murmured. They think the eclipse is awakening your curse. The noblewomen laughed quietly. Lyra tightened her grip on the silver basin hard enough to hurt. Seline stopped directly in front of her. You should feel grateful, she continued. Most kingdoms would have drowned a girl like you at birth. Lyra lowered her gaze. Not because the words hurt, because anger was dangerous, and Seline knew exactly how to provoke it. Then the noblewoman smiled suddenly, cruelly. Oh, she said softly. I nearly forgot. Before Lyra could react, Seline deliberately struck the basin from her hands. Water exploded across the marble staircase. The silver bowl clattered loudly down the steps. Every noblewoman burst into laughter. Clean it again, Seline said. Lyra stared silently at the freezing water spreading across stone. Something sharp twisted inside her chest. Not humiliation. Exhaustion. How many years could someone survive being treated like a curse before they finally became one? Did you hear me? Seline asked coldly. Lyra slowly knelt. The marble soaked through her thin gloves instantly as she began cleaning the spilled water. Above her, the noblewomen continued laughing. Then a deep male voice cut cleanly through the sound. She heard you. Silence crashed across the staircase. Every servant immediately bowed. Lyra's pulse stumbled. She knew that voice. Prince Kale stood at the top of the stairs, dressed entirely in black. Not ceremonial robes. Armor. Moonsteel gleamed across his broad shoulders, while the winter wind moved through dark hair streaked faintly silver beneath the morning light. Tall, cold, beautiful in the terrifying way predators were beautiful. The future king of Ashfang descended slowly toward them, and for reasons Lyra could not explain. The curse beneath her skin suddenly burned hotter. The staircase fell completely silent as Prince Kale descended toward them. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the winter wind sweeping through the palace courtyard seemed to retreat from him. Lyra kept her head lowered, but she could still feel his presence approaching step by step. Heavy boots against marble. The faint scent of frost, cedar smoke, and steel. Beneath it all lingered something darker, something wild. The curse beneath her skin pulsed painfully. Kale stopped beside the overturned basin. Cold water spread around Lyra's knees while silver moonlight reflected across the marble floor. For one terrible heartbeat, she thought he might order the guards to drag her away like the others often did when nobles complained about her presence. Instead, his voice came low and controlled. You spilled this. Lady Seline answered before Lyra could speak. She was careless. Kale said nothing immediately. That silence unsettled everyone, more than anger would have. Lyra finally risked, lifting her eyes slightly. The prince stood towering above them in black ceremonial armor, moonsteel glinting faintly beneath dawn light. Scars crossed one side of his throat before disappearing beneath his collar. Not training scars. Claw marks. Old. Deep. The stories about him suddenly felt much more real. Kale's gaze shifted toward the royal wolves in the courtyard below. They were still staring at Lyra, still lowered. A muscle tightened in his jaw. Then he crouched, unexpectedly. The movement startled everyone on the staircase. Future kings did not kneel beside servants, especially not cursed ones. Kale picked up the fallen silver basin himself and held it out toward Lyra. Stand up. Lyra froze. For years, nobles had ordered her to kneel lower, Speak softer. Disappear faster. No one ever told her to stand. Slowly, she accepted the basin from his hands. The instant her fingers brushed his skin, pain exploded through Kale's chest. His wolf slammed violently against his ribs. Mate. The word roared through his mind with terrifying force. Kale nearly recoiled. Black markings flashed briefly beneath the skin of his neck before disappearing under his collar again. Lyra felt it too. Heat. Recognition. Something ancient, stirring violently between them. Her breath caught. Impossible. No wolf had ever reacted to her this way before. Kale withdrew his hand immediately. Too quickly. As if touching her had burned him. Lady Seline noticed the reaction instantly. Jealousy flickered behind her beautiful smile. "My prince," she said carefully. "The court is already preparing for tonight's feast." Kale remained focused on Lyra. "What is your name?" The question stunned her. Most nobles simply called her Curse-bearer, or Eclipse Girl, or worse. Lyra. His eyes narrowed slightly at the sound of it, like the name meant something to him. Then one of the wolves below suddenly howled. Not aggressively, mournfully. The sound echoed across the palace courtyard hard enough to make servants flinch. Kale slowly straightened. "Take the morning off," he told Lyra quietly. Celine's expression sharpened immediately. "She's assigned to the eastern wing." "Then assign someone else." The noble women exchanged uneasy glances. No one contradicted Prince Kale openly. "Not a for Seline." Lyra lowered her head quickly. "Yes, my prince." Kale stared at her for one final moment, and for reasons he could not explain. He could hear her heartbeat. Fast, uneven, afraid. Not of him, of herself. That disturbed him far more than the curse ever could. Without another word, Kale turned and descended toward the courtyard below. Guards immediately followed behind him while servants rushed aside to clear his path. Only after he disappeared beneath the stone arches did the staircase begin breathing again. Celine's smile vanished instantly. The warmth drained from her face, like winter swallowing sunlight. "You should be careful," she murmured softly. Lyra looked up cautiously. The noblewoman stepped closer until only inches separated them. "Men like Kale are drawn to dangerous things," Seline whispered. "But eventually they remember why those things should be killed." Then she brushed past Lyra and descended the staircase. The other noblewomen followed silently behind her, leaving Lyra alone beneath the cold morning light. Her hands still trembled from touching the prince. The strange heat lingering beneath her skin terrified her, because for the first time in years, the curse did not feel asleep anymore. It felt awake, and somewhere deep below the palace, hidden beneath stone and ice, something ancient opened its eyes. The sound reached Lyra before the pain did. A low heartbeat. Slow. Massive. Ancient enough to feel less like a living creature, and more like the mountain itself breathing beneath Ashfang Palace. Her body went rigid. The silver basin slipped from her fingers and struck the marble floor with a loud metallic crack. No one else reacted. The servants crossing the courtyard continued working normally. Guards marched along the outer walls. Far above, black banners snapped violently beneath the winter wind. Only Lyra heard it. Boom! Another pulse shuddered through the stone beneath her feet. Then the pain came. The curse along her throat burned so violently she nearly collapsed to her knees. She pressed trembling fingers against the markings beneath her scarf and stumbled backward toward the servant corridor before anyone noticed. Not here. Please, not here. She barely made it around the corner before the next wave hit. Visions exploded through her mind. Silver eyes opening in endless darkness. Snow-covered forests burning blue beneath moonfire. A colossal wolf standing atop a mountain of bones while kings bowed beneath it. Lyra slammed herself against the cold stone wall, gasping for breath. The vision vanished instantly, but the fear remained. For years, the curse had only brought pain. Fever, nightmares, strange whispers beneath the moon. Never visions. Never this. Footsteps approached suddenly. Lyra straightened immediately, trying to hide the trembling in her hands. An older servant named Mira emerged from the corridor carrying folded linens. Unlike most palace workers, Mira did not flinch when she saw Lyra. She only frowned. "You're pale." "I'm fine. You say that every time you look like death." Lyra forced herself to stand properly. "I still have duties." Mira ignored that completely. The older woman stepped closer and gently pulled the dark scarf away from Lyra's throat. Both of them froze. The black silver markings had spread higher. Thin glowing lines now climbed beneath Lyra's jaw like cracks through moonlit ice. Mira inhaled sharply. "It's worsening." Lyra pulled the cloth back quickly. "Don't. Has the temple seen this?" Fear flashed across Lyra's face instantly. Mira cursed softly under her breath. "That bad? If the priestesses see it now," Lyra whispered, "they'll lock me beneath the old sanctum." The older servant looked away grimly. Everyone knew what happened beneath the sanctum. People entered. Very few returned. Mira lowered her voice carefully. "You should leave before tonight's feast." Lyra almost laughed at the impossibility of it. "Leave? And go where?" The older woman had no answer. Ashfang controlled every mountain pass for hundreds of miles. Rogue wolves wandered the frozen wilderness beyond the kingdom borders, and a cursed girl with visible moon markings would never survive alone. Mira touched her arm gently. "Then hide until the eclipse passes." Lyra wanted to believe that would help, but deep inside, something felt terribly wrong. The curse was not weakening beneath the blood moon. It was waking up. Another howl echoed across the palace. Closer this time. Mira glanced nervously toward the courtyard windows. "The royal wolves haven't stopped screaming since dawn," she muttered. Lyra swallowed hard, because she knew. They were not screaming in rage. They were warning the palace about something coming, or welcoming it home. Far below the throne courtyard, Prince Kale stood alone inside the royal kennels. The largest wolf paced violently behind reinforced silver bars, while handlers watched from a terrified distance. The beast never behaved this way, not unless death approached. Kale entered the enclosure without hesitation. The guards immediately stiffened. "My prince, leave." The handlers obeyed instantly. Only silence remained, once the heavy doors shut behind them. The enormous black wolf stopped pacing the moment Kale approached. Then slowly, the beast lowered its head. Submission. Kael's expression darkened. "You sensed her to." The wolf whimpered softly. Kale clenched his jaw. Impossible. The mate bond could not exist between him and a cursed servant girl. Fate would not be so cruel. Yet his wolf had recognized her instantly. And worse, the beast inside him had responded as well. Kale removed one glove slowly. Black celestial markings spread across his wrist like living shadows before fading again beneath his skin. The royal healers called it the Hollow Curse, a sickness buried within the Ashfang bloodline for generations. But Kale knew the truth. It was not a sickness. It was hunger. Something monstrous lived inside him, something ancient. And according to prophecy, his true mate would either calm the beast or unleash it completely. Kale leaned both hands against the silver bars. For years he had controlled it through violence and discipline, never allowing attachment, never allowing weakness, never allowing anyone close enough to trigger the bond. Then, one touch from Lyra had nearly shattered his control. The wolf suddenly growled low in its throat, not toward Kale, toward the darkness beneath the kennels. Kale slowly turned. The growl deepened. Stone trembled faintly beneath the floor. Then, for one horrifying second, another heartbeat answered from somewhere deep below the palace. Not human, not wolf. Ancien. Kale went completely still, because whatever slept beneath Ashfang had just awakened too. By sunset, the entire palace smelled like fear hidden beneath perfume. Golden chandeliers illuminated the throne hall, while servants rushed between towering banquet tables, carrying silver trays and crystal goblets filled with dark wine. Musicians tuned their instruments beneath vaulted ceilings painted with the victories of ancient Alpha Kings. Everything glittered. Everything lied. Because beneath the beauty of the engagement feast, tension coiled through the court like a blade pressed against a throat. The blood moon had risen larger than anyone expected. Even the oldest nobles whispered nervously when they looked toward the crimson sky beyond the crystal dome overhead. Eclipses were sacred in Ashfang, but blood moon eclipses, those belonged to prophecy. Lyra tried to stay invisible as she moved between the crowded corridors carrying ceremonial goblets toward the throne hall. Her servant uniform covered most of the spreading curse beneath her skin, though pain still pulsed sharply through her throat with every heartbeat. Something inside her felt restless now, listening. The whispers had started an hour earlier. Soft, ancien, almost impossible to hear. Open the door. Lyra gripped the tray harder. No. She refused to answer whatever lived inside her mind. Ahead, the enormous throne hall blazed with candlelight. Hundreds of nobles filled the marble chamber dressed in black, silver, and crimson silk, while royal guards lined the walls in moonsteel armor. At the center of everything stood Prince Kale. Every conversation bent around him. Even silent, he dominated the room completely. Tonight he wore ceremonial black, rather than armor, though somehow the dark silk robes made him appear even more dangerous. A silver wolf crest rested against his chest, while black gloves concealed the strange markings hidden beneath his skin. Noble women watched him constantly. Kale ignored all of them. His gaze swept the hall slowly, searching. Then, it found Lyra. The mate bond struck both of them instantly. Lyra nearly dropped the tray. Heat spread sharply through her chest, while the curse beneath her skin flared painfully alive. Across the hall, Kale went rigid. Again, that same impossible recognition. The same dangerous pull. Lyra looked away immediately, but it was too late. Seline noticed. The future Luna candidate stood beside the throne platform wrapped in silver silk that shimmered like moonlight itself. Beautiful enough to make lesser nobles stare in envy. Yet the moment she saw Kale watching Lyra, something ugly flickered behind her eyes. Fear. Not because Kale desired another woman, because he reacted to Lyra at all. A sudden hush spread across the throne hall. The great doors opened, and Mother Vera entered. The high priestess of the Old Moon Temple moved slowly through the chamber surrounded by silver-veiled acolytes carrying burning moon candles. Ancient symbols gleamed across the white bone staff in her hand. Everyone bowed immediately. Even rival alpha lords lowered their heads. The temple stood above politics in Ashfang, above kings sometimes. Lyra instinctively stepped backward into the shadows near the servant corridor. Too late. Mother Vera stopped walking. Her pale eyes locked onto Lyra from across the crowded throne hall. The old priestess went completely still. For one terrible heartbeat, genuine fear crossed her face. Then it vanished beneath calm control. My prince, Vera said softly, approaching the throne platform. The eclipse deepens faster than expected. Kale's voice remained cold. The feast proceeds regardless. I fear the gods may disagree. Murmurs spread uneasily among the nobles. Vera slowly turned toward the crystal dome above them, where crimson moonlight spilled across the court like blood. The old prophecies speak clearly. She continued. When the blood moon rises over Ashfang, the prison beneath the mountain weakens. Kale's jaw tightened slightly. And? The priestess looked directly toward Lyra again. And something buried long ago may attempt to wake. Ice flooded Lyra's veins. She lowered her eyes immediately. Please stop looking at me. But Mother Vera already knew. The priestess could feel it. The curse. The changing power beneath Lyra's skin. And worse, the mate bond forming between her and the prince. Seline stepped closer to the throne carefully. You believe someone in the palace threatens the kingdom? She asked. Vera remained silent for several seconds. Then slowly, yes, the entire hall seemed to darken. Lyra's heartbeat became painfully loud in her ears, because, deep beneath the whispers and music and noble laughter, the ancient voice inside her mind suddenly spoke again, closer this time. They remember us now. The musicians began playing again, but the warmth had vanished from the throne hall. Laughter sounded forced now. Nobles drank faster, and everywhere Lyra walked, She felt eyes following her through the candlelit crowd. Mother Vera's words had poisoned the atmosphere perfectly. Something buried long ago may attempt to wake. The court heard prophecy, but Lyra heard accusation. She kept her head lowered as she moved between tables, refilling goblets with trembling hands. Crimson wine splashed softly against silver cups, while whispers drifted through the hall like smoke. The eclipse, born girl. The priestess looked directly at her. I heard the royal wolves refused food today. They should have killed the creature years ago. Creature. Lyra swallowed hard. Funny how quickly people stopped calling someone human once fear entered the room. A nobleman grabbed her wrist suddenly as she passed. Wine. Lyra stopped immediately. Lord Harrow of the Southern Pax lounged across velvet cushions near the center tables, already drunk enough for cruelty to become entertainment. Two younger alphas beside him laughed openly, while their wolves prowled restlessly beneath the feast tables. Lyra carefully poured the wine. Lord Harrow stared at the cloth, covering part of her face. "Tell me something," he said loudly enough for nearby nobles to hear. "Is it true the curse moves beneath your skin?" Several guests turned toward them immediately. Lyra remained silent. The alpha grinned wider. "I asked you a question." "She's working," another noblewoman murmured uncomfortably. Harrow ignored her completely. "Remove the scarf." Lyra's fingers tightened around the wine pitcher. "No." The entire table went still. Not because she refused, because she answered at all. Lord Harrow slowly stood. Tall, broad, dangerously drunk. "You forget your place, servant." "I know my place," Lyra replied quietly. "Do you?" His smile sharpened. "Because from where I stand, your place looks very close to execution." A few nobles laughed nervously. Others looked away. No one intervened. They never did. Lyra lowered her gaze again and tried to move past him. Harrow blocked her path instantly. "Show us the curse." Her pulse quickened. "No." The alpha's wolf surfaced slightly beneath his skin, amber eyes flashing briefly. "Or perhaps," he said softly, "the priestess is right to fear what's hiding underneath." The room seemed smaller suddenly. "Horta." The whispers inside Lyra's head grew louder. Tara's throat open. Her stomach twisted violently. "No." "Show them what they deserve." "No." Fear crawled beneath her skin as the curse burned hotter along her throat. "Not now. Please not now." Then another voice cut sharply through the tension. "That's enough." Silence crashed across the hall instantly. Prince Kale descended from the throne platform slowly, every noble stepping aside without thought as he crossed the marble floor toward them. Lord Harrow stiffened. "My prince, we were merely—" "I heard." Kale's silver eyes moved briefly toward Lyra. The mate bond pulsed violently again. And this time, everyone close enough noticed. The prince's wolf reacted visibly. A dangerous growl vibrated low in Kale's chest before he suppressed it. Harrow blinked in confusion. Seline watched from the throne platform, her expression tightening sharply. Kale stopped directly beside Lyra, close enough for her to feel heat radiating through the black silk of his ceremonial robes. "Return to your duties," he told her quietly. Lyra immediately nodded, but as she tried to step away, the curse beneath her skin suddenly flared with blinding pain. She gasped softly. Kale noticed instantly. His hand caught her arm before she could fall. The moment he touched her, every torch in the throne hall flickered blue. The room froze. Lyra's eyes widened in horror, because the shadows beneath the banquet tables moved. Not naturally. Like something enormous shifted beneath the palace itself. Several wolves began snarling. One noblewoman screamed, and high above the throne hall, a crack suddenly splintered across the crystal dome beneath the blood moon. The music stopped. Dead silence followed. Kale slowly released Lyra's arm. Too late. Mother Vera was already staring directly at them. And for the first time since entering the hall, the high priestess looked afraid. The crack spread slowly across the crystal dome overhead. Everyone in the throne hall watched it in silence. Thin fractures crawled through the enchanted glass like silver veins beneath ice, while crimson moonlight poured deeper into the court. One crack became 3, then 7. The royal wolves beneath the throne began growling violently. A low panic rippled through the nobles. This is wrong. The dome was blessed by the temple. Why is the eclipse affecting the wards? Mother Vera tightened her grip on the bone staff. Her pale eyes never left Lyra. Kale noticed immediately, and suddenly the prince understood something dangerous. The priestess had not entered the throne hall tonight to celebrate the engagement. She had come hunting. "My prince," Vera said carefully, "the feast should end." Several nobles immediately protested. "The eclipse has barely reached its height. You cannot dismiss the court now. The alliance negotiations. The court will remain silent," Kale said coldly. Instant silence followed. He continued watching the priestess. "Explain." Mother Vera stepped forward slowly beneath the blood-red moonlight. "The wards beneath Ashfang are failing," she said. "Something ancient is pushing against the old seals." Lyra's heartbeat stumbled. The whispers inside her head grew louder. "Open the door." She pressed trembling fingers against the tray in her hands hard enough to hurt. "No." Kale's voice sharpened slightly. "And what does that have to do with my servant?" The words struck Lyra strangely. My servant. Not the curse-bearer. Not the eclipse girl. A ridiculous warmth flickered painfully inside her chest. Mother Vera noticed it too. The old priestess's expression darkened. "Everything." Murmurs spread immediately through the nobles. Seline descended slowly from the throne platform, silver silk whispering across marble. "You truly believe she caused this?" she asked. "I believe," Vera replied carefully, "that the eclipse reacts to bloodlines hidden from the gods." Lyra felt cold instantly. Bloodlines, not curses. Kale's eyes narrowed. "You speak in riddles." "Because some truths were buried for good reason." The priestess slowly approached Lyra. The entire throne hall seemed to tense with each step. Lyra wanted to retreat, but her feet refused to move. Mother Vera stopped directly before her. For one long moment, neither woman spoke. Then the priestess lifted one hand toward the scarf covering Lyra's throat. "Remove this." Fear slammed through Lyra's chest. "No." The refusal echoed sharply across the silent hall. Several nobles gasped. Kale stepped forward immediately. "Enough," he said coldly, but Mother Vera ignored him completely. Her eyes remained fixed on Lyra. "You feel it waking, don't you?" The whispers inside Lyra's head became deafening. Yes. Pain exploded beneath her skin. She nearly cried out. Kale caught the movement instantly. His wolf snarled low inside his chest. "What is happening to her?" he demanded. The priestess finally looked toward him, and for the first time, there was genuine fear in her eyes. "When she was born," Vera said softly, "the Moon Temple warned the crown that the child should not survive the night." The throne hall fell silent. Lyra stopped breathing. No one had ever spoken openly about the night of her birth before. Not once. Kale's expression hardened dangerously. "You threatened an infant? We tried to save this kingdom." The old priestess turned back toward Lyra slowly. "But your father refused." "Father?" The word struck Lyra like a knife. "You knew my father?" she whispered. Mother Vera's silence answered enough. The curse beneath Lyra's skin burned violently. Memories flickered through her mind again. A man's voice, warm hands, lifting her into moonlight. "Run." The vision vanished instantly. Lyra staggered backward. Kale moved toward her immediately. But before he reached her, every torch in the throne hall extinguished at once. Darkness swallowed the court. Screams erupted. The royal wolves howled violently. And somewhere deep beneath Ashfang Palace, something massive roared back. The sound shook the mountain. Not thunder, not an earthquake. Arwar, ancient and enormous, rising from somewhere far beneath the palace foundations like a beast, dragging itself awake after centuries in chains. The throne hall erupted into panic. Nobles stumbled blindly through darkness, while servants screamed near the banquet tables. Crystal goblets shattered against marble. Several wolves broke free from their handlers and slammed themselves against the doors trying to escape. Then silver flames burst suddenly along the walls. Moonfire. Cold blue light flooded the throne hall once more, and everyone saw Lyra standing at the center of it. The curse beneath her skin glowed through the cloth wrapped around her throat. Alive, breathing, the shadows around her feet twisted unnaturally, like claws moving beneath water. Fear swept visibly across the court. She's doing this. The eclipse-born witch. Kill her before the seal breaks. Silence. Prince Kale's voice crashed through the hall hard enough to stop even the nobles mid-panic. Moonfire reflected sharply across his silver eyes as he moved directly toward Lyra. His wolf was losing control. He could feel it now. Every instinct inside him screamed to protect her. Mine. The possessive growl nearly escaped his throat. Kale buried it violently. Not now. Not here. Lyra looked up at him through the blue firelight, visibly trembling, and suddenly Kale realized the truth. She had no idea what was happening to her either. That terrified him more than the prophecy ever had. The floor trembled again. A deep crack split across the marble beneath the throne platform. Nobles screamed and stumbled backward as black dust rose from the widening fracture. Something beneath the palace was pushing upward. Mother Vera slammed her moonstaff against the floor. Silver runes ignited instantly across the throne hall walls. The old seal is weakening, she warned. Kale rounded on her sharply. What seal? The priestess hesitated. Too long. Kale saw it immediately. You knew this would happen. Vera's face hardened. The temple prepared for this night centuries ago. Rage flashed across Kale's expression. You brought the court here during an unstable eclipse? We needed witnesses. Cold realization swept through the throne hall. This had never been only an engagement feast. It was a trial, and Lyra was the sacrifice. The whispers inside Lyra's head became unbearable. Open the door. The pain beneath her skin intensified violently. She fell to one knee with a strangled gasp. Kale caught her instantly before she hit the marble. The moment his hands touched her, the mate bond exploded again. A shock wave of silver light burst outward, hard enough to extinguish the moonfire along the walls. Several nobles cried out. Kale froze. Because this time, everyone felt it. The connection between them. Seline's face drained completely of color. Mother Vera looked horrified. No, the priestess whispered. Kale's pulse thundered violently. The bond wrapped around his chest like fire and chains together. Impossible. Impossible. His wolf surged upward with terrifying force. Black markings spread visibly beneath the skin of his throat. Several nearby nobles recoiled immediately. The prince, he carries the curse too. Kale ignored them completely. His eyes remained locked on Lyra, and for one devastating moment, he heard her thoughts. Not words. Fear. Loneliness. Exhaustion so deep it felt endless. No one's ever chosen me. The feeling struck Kale harder than any blade. Then Lyra screamed. The sound ripped through the throne hall as silver cracks exploded across the marble floor beneath her body. Moonfire erupted upward in towering pillars, and deep below the palace, something answered her call. The palace shook hard enough to throw nobles off their feet. Massive cracks tore across the marble floor, while silver fire exploded upward around Lyra in violent spirals. The air filled with dust, screams, and the smell of ancient magic breaking apart. Kale wrapped one arm around Lyra instinctively, shielding her body from falling stone. But the moment he touched her again, the roar beneath the mountain changed. It became louder, closer, alive. Every wolf in the throne hall dropped flat against the floor, whining in terror. The royal guards backed away despite themselves. Even hardened alpha warriors looked pale now, because instinct recognized something their minds could not understand. A predator, older than their bloodlines, had awakened beneath Ashfang. Lyra clutched Kale's arm desperately. The curse burned like molten silver beneath her skin. It hurts. Kale tightened his hold immediately. His wolf surged violently at the sound of her pain. Look at me, he ordered. Her silver eyes lifted toward his, and suddenly the throne hall disappeared. For one impossible heartbeat, Kale saw through her mind. Snow falling over black mountains. A woman singing softly beside a fire. silver eyes identical to Lyra's smiling down at a child. Then, blood covering temple stones. Screaming. Cha. A priestess whispering, "Seal it before it wakes." The vision shattered instantly. Kale staggered backward in shock. Lyra gasped sharply like she felt it too. Mother Vera's expression turned deadly serious. "She's remembering." Seline stepped backward slowly. "What is she?" The priestess looked toward the widening cracks spreading across the throne hall floor. "Not what?" she whispered. "Who?" The stone beneath the throne platform suddenly exploded upward. A deafening roar tore through the court as black debris rained across the hall. Nobles screamed and scattered while guards raised swords toward the darkness opening beneath the palace. Something enormous moved below. Silver eyes flashed briefly in the abyss. Ancien, colossal. Watching. The entire throne hall froze. Then the creature growled. The sound hit the court like physical force. Several nobles collapsed instantly. One servant fainted. Even Kale's wolf recoiled violently inside him. Not from weakness. Recognition. The thing beneath Ashfang was not merely powerful. It was royal. Older than the first Alpha Kings. Older than the kingdom itself. And somehow, connected to Lyra. The whispers inside her mind became clear at last. Not many voices. Only one. Little moon. The tenderness of it nearly broke her. Tears filled Lyra's eyes instantly, because for the first time in years, the voice did not sound cruel. It sounded lonely. Mother Vera stepped forward sharply. "Seal the chamber now." Temple acolytes rushed forward carrying silver chains covered in glowing runes. Guards moved with them nervously toward the abyss splitting open beneath the throne hall. Kale's expression darkened instantly. "What are you doing? The prison must remain closed." Lyra stared toward the darkness below. Prison. The word twisted painfully inside her chest. Why did that feel wrong? The ancient voice answered softly. "Because it was never meant for me." Before Lyra could react, one of the acolytes lunged forward and wrapped a glowing silver chain around her wrist. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed, and everything changed. The shadows around the throne hall rose violently upward. Not smoke, not darkness. Wolves. Dozens of enormous spectral wolves formed from silver moonlight erupted from the cracked marble floor surrounding Lyra, like guardians answering a forgotten queen. The court recoiled in horror. Temple acolytes stumbled backward. The silver chain around Lyra's wrist shattered instantly. And above them all, the blood moon turned completely black. Darkness swallowed the kingdom. Not ordinary darkness. The kind that felt alive. The moment the moon turned black, every torch in the throne hall extinguished again. Cold swept violently through the palace corridors, while the spectral wolves surrounding Lyra lifted their heads toward the eclipse above. Then they howled. The sound pierced through Ashfang like prophecy, finally remembering its own name. Outside the palace, the city erupted into panic. Temple bells rang wildly. Dogs screamed. Children woke crying. And throughout the mountain kingdom, wolves dropped to their knees beneath the blackened moon. Inside the throne hall, no one moved. No one dared. The spectral wolves circling Lyra glowed silver blue in the darkness. Their massive forms made from moonfire and ancient memory. Some stood as large as horses. Others towered higher than men. All of them guarded her. Mother Vera's face had gone completely pale. "The Black Moon," she whispered. One of the older Alpha Lords stumbled backward. "That eclipse only appears in the oldest prophecies." Another noble crossed himself with trembling fingers. "The celestial bloodline." Kale ignored them all. His eyes remained fixed on Lyra. She stood at the center of the wolves, trembling violently. Moonlight burning beneath her skin while silver flames crawled across the marble around her feet without consuming anything. Beautiful. Terrifying. Alone. Kale stepped toward her immediately. 3 spectral wolves snarled. The entire throne hall flinched, but Lyra looked up weakly. "No," she whispered. The wolves stopped instantly. Every noble noticed. They obey her. Fear rippled through the court again. Kale continued walking slowly until he stood only a few feet away from her. The mate bond burned painfully between them now. Rough, unstable. His wolf wanted to tear apart anyone who looked at her with fear. That realization should have horrified him. Instead, it felt natural. Lyra swayed slightly. Kale caught her before she could fall. This time, the spectral wolves did not stop him. The moment his arm wrapped around her waist, the whispers inside Lyra's head quieted for the first time all night. Warmth spread painfully through her chest. Kyle felt it too. Something about him steadied the chaos beneath her skin. Mother Vera saw that immediately, and suddenly the old priestess looked afraid in a completely different way. "You cannot touch her," she said sharply. Kale's gaze lifted slowly. "Watch me." The coldness in his voice silenced half the court. Vera tightened her grip on the moonstaff. "You do not understand what she carries. Then explain it." Silence. The priestess hesitated. Kale's eyes darkened dangerously. "That thing beneath the palace," he continued. "The wolves, the eclipse, none of this surprised you." His voice sharpened. "What did the temple do?" The throne hall became deathly quiet. Lyra looked toward Vera too. "Please, tell me." The old priestess stared at her for several long seconds, and for the first time, there was guilt in her face. "When you were born," Vera said quietly, "the sky split open above Ashfang." Lyra's breath caught. "The royal wolves tore through their cages trying to reach you. The Moon Temple lost 13 priestesses before sunrise." The old woman's voice lowered further, "Because something ancient followed your birth into this world." The abyss beneath the throne hall rumbled softly. Listening, Kale tightened his hold on Lyra unconsciously. Vera continued, "Your mother belonged to a bloodline older than the Alpha Kings themselves, a forgotten house touched directly by the celestial wolves." Her eyes hardened painfully. "The temple warned your father the child should never survive." Lyra went still. The words hit harder than any cruelty ever had. Never survive. Not cursed. Unwanted. Kale felt the sharp stab of grief through the mate bond instantly. His wolf snarled. Mother Vera looked toward the black moon overhead. "But your father refused to surrender you." Her expression darkened. "So we sealed the beast instead." Silence. The throne hall stopped breathing. Lyra's voice barely emerged above a whisper. "Beast?" The old priestess finally looked directly at her, and the answer in her eyes was far worse than hatred. Fear. The first celestial wolf. The abyss beneath the palace exploded with a roar. The roar shattered half the throne hall. Stone columns cracked violently as a blast of silver-black energy erupted from the abyss beneath the palace floor. Nobles screamed and scattered, while enormous fractures ripped across the marble like spiderwebs beneath moonlight. The spectral wolves surrounding Lyra immediately turned toward the darkness below, not in fear, in reverence. Then the creature began climbing upward. Massive claws carved through stone. Ancient silver light spilled through the widening chasm. And slowly, a colossal wolf emerged from beneath Ashfang Palace. The throne hall fell silent, in pure horror. The creature was enormous beyond reason, large enough that its head nearly reached the shattered crystal dome overhead. Silver fur shimmered like moonlight across water, while black celestial markings glowed beneath its skin, exactly like the ones spreading across Lyra's body. Its eyes, goats. Its eyes looked heartbreakingly human. Ancient grief lived inside them. The first celestial wolf stared directly at Lyra, not at the court, not at the guards pointing weapons toward it. Only her. And suddenly, every whisper inside Lyra's mind became clear. "Little moon." The voice was gentle, lonely, familiar. Tears filled Lyra's eyes instantly, because somehow she knew this creature, not from memory, from before memory. The celestial wolf stepped fully into the throne hall. Every noble dropped to their knees instinctively. Even rival alphas bowed their heads without understanding why. Royal blood recognized something greater standing before it. Kyle remained standing, barely. His wolf fought violently inside him, torn between submission and protection. The pressure radiating from the ancient creature felt overwhelming, like standing before the mountain itself. But when the celestial wolf looked toward Kale, its enormous silver eyes narrowed. The air changed instantly. Danger. Kale stepped protectively in front of Lyra, without hesitation. The court gasped. The ancient wolf growled softly. Not angry. Testing. Lyra grabbed Kyle's sleeve immediately. Wait. The celestial wolf's gaze shifted back toward her, and for one impossible moment, the monstrous creature looked wounded. The whispers brushed gently across Lyra's mind again. You chose another protector. Emotion twisted painfully through her chest. You're alone, Lyra whispered before she could stop herself. The throne hall froze, because she was speaking to it. And worse, it understood her. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head slightly. Yes. Mother Vera suddenly stepped forward, raising the moon staff. Get away from her. Silver runes ignited violently across the staff. The celestial wolf snarled instantly. The sound shook blood from the cracked palace walls. Temple acolytes rushed forward with glowing chains, while guards lifted moonsteel spears toward the beast. Kyle's expression darkened with fury. Stand down. They cannot bond. Vera shouted desperately. If the celestial wolf fully awakens through her, the old kingdom will rise again. Lyra stared at the priestess. Old kingdom? Before she could ask, another memory slammed violently into her mind. A silver throne beneath black mountains. Celestial wolves running freely beside human rulers. The moon temple kneeling. Venvar. Fire. Blood. Priests screaming as chains wrapped around enormous silver beasts. A woman with Lyra's eyes whispering through tears. Forgive me. The vision shattered. Lyra gasped sharply. The celestial wolf took one step toward her. The entire palace trembled, and suddenly Kale understood the terrifying truth. The creature was not trying to destroy Ashfang. It was trying to reclaim her. No one move. Kyle's voice cut through the throne hall like steel. Guards froze instantly. Temple acolytes hesitated with glowing chains raised halfway toward the celestial wolf. Fear drenched the court so heavily, it almost felt visible beneath the black moon overhead. But Kale did not draw his sword. He stood between the ancient beast and the terrified nobles with one hand still wrapped protectively around Lyra's wrist. And for the first time in years, the prince stopped hiding what lived inside him. Black celestial markings spread slowly above the collar of his robes. Visible now. Alive. The court recoiled in shock. Mother Vera looked horrified. You, she whispered. Kale ignored her completely. His eyes remained locked on the colossal wolf before them. You know her, he said quietly. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head slightly. Yes. Several nobles nearly collapsed. The creature was speaking through thought alone, its voice vibrating directly inside their skulls, like thunder buried beneath ice. Lyra's fingers tightened unconsciously around Kale's sleeve. Her fear had changed now. Not fear of the beast, fear of the truth. Because every instinct inside her recognized the creature. The celestial wolf slowly approached again. No aggression, no hunger, only grief. Its enormous silver eyes remained fixed on Lyra, with devastating tenderness. Then the creature spoke again inside her mind. You carry her heart. Another memory struck Lyra violently. A woman kneeling beside a frozen river beneath moonlight. Silver eyes, dark hair. A lullaby. The same lullaby Lyra barely remembered from childhood. Mother. Pain tore through her chest. The celestial wolf lowered itself carefully onto the shattered marble floor before her. A king bowing before a queen. The throne hall stared in disbelief. Kale felt the shift immediately. The ancient creature was not claiming Lyra as prey. It recognized her as blood. Mother Vera realized it too, and panic finally shattered the priestess's composure. Seal it now, she screamed. Temple acolytes rushed forward instantly. Silver chains covered in glowing runes shot toward the celestial wolf. The beast roared. Moonfire exploded through the throne hall. 3 acolytes were thrown violently backward into stone pillars, while the spectral wolves surrounding Lyra lunged forward, snarling. Chaos erupted again. Nobles fled, screaming toward the exits. Guards drew moonsteel blades. Kale stepped in front of Lyra instinctively, as silver fire tore through the court around them. "Enough!" he roared. But no one listened anymore. Fear had taken control. One terrified guard thrust a moonsteel spear directly toward the celestial wolf's throat. The ancient beast turned sharply, and Lyra felt the killing instinct hit through the bond. Not rage. Reflex. Predator. "No!" she screamed. Everything stopped. The celestial wolf froze instantly. The spear halted inches from its throat. Every spectral wolf in the hall went still. The entire court stared at Lyra in stunned silence, because the ancient beast had obeyed her. The guard holding the spear began trembling violently. Mother Vera's face lost all color. "She commands it." The whispers inside Lyra's mind softened again. "Little moon." The celestial wolf slowly lowered its head beneath her voice. And suddenly Kale understood the real reason the temple feared her. Not because she carried the beast, because she could control it. The bond between Lyra and the celestial wolf pulsed stronger. The black moon above the throne hall cracked faintly with silver light, and deep inside Kale's chest, his own beast answered. Pain ripped violently through him. Kale staggered backward with a strangled gasp. Black markings spread rapidly beneath his skin. His wolf surged upward harder than ever before. The mate bond snapped fully into place. Lyra turned toward him instantly. Their eyes met, and the world exploded. Silver light erupted between them hard enough to blind the entire throne hall. Every wolf inside Ashfang Palace howled at once. Kale collapsed to one knee, because suddenly he could feel her heartbeat inside his own body. And worse, he could feel her fear. Not fear of death. Fear that once he learned the truth about what she really was, he would leave her too. Kyle could feel everything. Lyra's fear, her loneliness, the exhaustion buried so deeply inside her soul that it no longer felt temporary, but permanent. Years of silence. Years of being looked at like something dangerous. Years spent surviving rooms where everyone secretly wished she did not exist. The mate bond poured all of it into him at once. It nearly broke his control. Kale gripped the cracked marble floor hard enough to split stone beneath his fingers. Black celestial markings burned violently across his throat and arms now, visible to the entire court. The nobles backed away in horror, because their prince looked less human with every passing second. Mother Vera stared at him in disbelief. "The prophecy," she whispered. Kale barely heard her. His wolf was roaring inside him now. Not at Lyra. At the court. At the chains. At everyone who ever made her afraid. Mine. The possessive instinct hit him so hard it frightened even him. Lyra knelt beside him immediately, despite the silver flames still flickering around the throne hall. Kale. The moment her hand touched his face, relief surged violently through him. The beast inside him calmed. Not fully, but enough to breathe again. The court saw it happen. Saw the monstrous prince steady beneath the touch of the cursed girl. Fear changed shape across the nobles' faces. This was no longer a servant, touched by forbidden magic. This was something older, a bond written directly into prophecy. The celestial wolf watched silently from the shattered throne hall floor, enormous silver eyes fixed on them both. Then, the creature spoke into Lyra's mind again. He carries celestial blood too. Lyra froze. What? Kale looked toward her immediately. The celestial wolf slowly rose to its full terrifying height. The mountain itself seemed to breathe with the movement. Long before the Alpha Kings, the voice echoed softly through her thoughts. Our blood ruled the northern moonlands. Another vision struck Lyra. Massive silver wolves running beside crowned warriors through snow-covered forests. Not masters, not pets, family. Then, betrayal. Humans wrapped glowing chains around celestial beasts while temples burned beneath black smoke. A war. No, a slaughter. Lyra gasped sharply as the vision ended. The temple hunted them, she whispered. Mother Vera's expression hardened instantly. They were destroying kingdoms. The celestial wolf's growl shook the hall. Lice. Moonfire erupted across the broken marble. Temple acolytes stumbled backward in terror. Kale slowly stood despite the pain tearing through his body. The black markings beneath his skin had spread across both hands now, glowing faintly like cracks filled with starlight. His breathing remained uneven, dangerously uneven. Lyra realized, suddenly, he was fighting transformation too. The truth hit her hard. "You're cursed." Kale laughed once. A cold, bitter sound. "That depends who tells the story." Mother Vera lifted her moonstaff sharply. The Ashfang bloodline was infected during the Celestial Wars. Every heir since has carried traces of the beast corruption. Kale's silver eyes darkened dangerously. "You mean the truth you buried?" The priestess ignored him. Her gaze remained fixed on Lyra. The prince's bloodline was never meant to awaken fully. But if the celestial wolf recognizes you, genuine fear entered her expression again. Then the old bond may restore itself. The court fell silent. One of the Alpha Lords spoke hoarsely. "What old bond?" No one answered immediately. Then the celestial wolf stepped toward Kale. Slowly, carefully. The ancient beast lowered its massive head until silver eyes met the prince directly. For one impossible moment, Kale saw himself reflected there, not as prince, not as heir, as something older. The celestial wolf inhaled once, then spoke aloud for the first time. "Moon, heir." The throne hall froze in absolute silence. Kale's blood turned cold, because somewhere, deep inside himself, something ancient answered the name. The words echoed through the shattered throne hall long after the celestial wolf fell silent. "Moon, heir." No one moved. No one breathed. Even the black moon hanging above Ashfang Palace seemed to darken further, as if the sky itself waited for Kale's answer. The prince stood completely still beneath drifting silver ash, his chest rising unevenly, while black celestial markings burned beneath his skin like living starlight. Moon heir. The title struck something buried deep inside him. Something ancient. Something afraid. Kale staggered backward suddenly. Pain exploded behind his ribs. Not physical pain. Memory. Snowstorms beneath silver banners. A throne carved from black stone. A woman's voice whispering softly, "One day they will hunt you too." Kyle gritted his teeth violently as the vision shattered. "No," he breathed. The celestial wolf watched him silently. "You remember." Mother Vera's face had gone deathly pale. "This cannot happen," she whispered. Lyra looked between them in confusion. "What is a moon heir?" The old priestess closed her eyes briefly, like the answer itself wounded her. "The last descendants of the celestial bloodlines." Murmurs exploded across the court. That bloodline was erased. The Moon Kings died centuries ago. The temple burned their kingdoms. "Silence," Vera snapped. Fear sharpened her voice now. Not authority. Fear. Kale slowly lifted his gaze toward her. "You knew." The priestess did not answer. That was answer enough. Rage moved visibly through Kale's body. All his life, the temple called his condition a curse, a sickness buried inside the Ashfang bloodline, something shameful requiring control. But now, the truth stood before him. He had never been cursed. He had been surviving a bloodline the temple tried to erase. The celestial wolf turned toward Lyra again, the last moon daughter. Then toward Kale, the last moon heir. The throne hall erupted into terrified whispers. Lyra felt cold, all over, because suddenly the mate bond between her and Kale made horrifying sense. Not coincidence. Recognition. Ancient blood calling ancient blood home. Mother Vera slammed her moon staff against the marble floor. Silver runes exploded across the chamber walls instantly. "We end this now." Temple acolytes rushed forward immediately, carrying chains covered in glowing symbols. More guards entered through the shattered throne doors armed with moonsteel spears. Kyle stepped protectively in front of Lyra without hesitation. "Tre." The word came out wrong. Deeper. Less human. Several nobles physically recoiled. The celestial markings had spread across half his throat now, shimmering beneath his skin like constellations trapped inside flesh. Mother Vera pointed the moon staff directly toward Lyra. If the moon bloodline fully awakens, the old kingdoms will rise again. And if they do? Kale asked coldly. The priestess looked genuinely horrified by the question. You know nothing about what existed before the temple. The celestial wolf growled low in its chest. Lies wrapped in prayer. Moonfire flickered violently around the ancient beast's enormous paws. The throne hall trembled again. Then suddenly, Lyra cried out sharply. Pain ripped through her body so violently she collapsed to one knee. Silver fire burst beneath her skin while the curse markings climbed higher along her face. Kale dropped beside her instantly. Lyra. The mate bond surged chaotically between them. Too much power. Too fast. The black moon overhead cracked further with silver light. The celestial wolf moved toward them immediately. Protective. Urgent. She cannot hold the awakening alone. Mother Vera's eyes widened in horror. No. The priestess looked toward Kale. And for the first time, she sounded desperate. If the bond completes tonight, she whispered, the celestial throne will awaken again. Silence crashed through the hall. Lyra looked up weakly. What throne? No one answered. But deep beneath Ashfang Palace, something enormous began waking too. The sound came from deep below the palace. Stone grinding against stone. Ancient mechanisms awakening after centuries of silence. The entire mountain trembled. Dust rained from the shattered crystal dome, while frightened nobles stumbled across broken marble, trying to reach the exits. Several temple acolytes dropped their chains entirely and fled, but the doors of the throne hall slammed shut on their own. A deafening boom echoed through the chamber. Every torch reignited instantly in silver flame, and beneath the cracked floor, runes began glowing. Massive circular symbols spread outward from the abyss where the celestial wolf had emerged, illuminating the throne hall with pale moonlight. Ancient markings crawled across the marble in patterns no one alive could read anymore, except the celestial wolf. The ancient creature lowered its head slowly. Home. The word echoed through Lyra's mind so softly it hurt. Kale helped her stand carefully as another violent pulse of power moved through the mate bond between them. His hands remained firm around her arms despite the chaos shaking the palace. The moment he touched her, the pain eased slightly. Lyra realized he felt it too, their power calming each other. The realization frightened her, because bonds like this were not temporary things. They changed lives forever. Mother Vera stared at the glowing runes in horror. The throne is waking. One of the older Alpha Lords looked toward her sharply. What throne? The priestess swallowed hard. The celestial throne. Silence spread again. Even the guards looked uneasy now. Kyle's voice remained cold. You keep speaking in fragments, because the truth was buried for a reason. Vera looked toward the abyss beneath the palace. Long before the Alpha Kingdoms existed, the North belonged to the celestial bloodlines. Wolves and humans ruled together beneath the black moon. Another memory flashed through Lyra instantly. Towering silver palaces built into mountains. Children laughing beside enormous celestial wolves. Moonlit forests untouched by war. Peace. Then screaming. Temple soldiers dragging chained wolves through burning streets. A crown falling into blood. Lyra gasped sharply. The celestial wolf turned toward her immediately. Remember. The word carried grief so deep it nearly crushed her chest. Kale noticed her trembling. What did you see? Lyra looked toward him weakly. The temple destroyed them. Mother Vera's expression hardened. They were becoming too powerful. The celestial wolf snarled violently. Lies. The sound shook the hall hard enough to crack more marble. Kale slowly straightened. Then tell the truth. For several seconds, the priestess remained silent. Then finally, the celestial rulers could command wolves directly through blood bonds. Her voice lowered carefully. No army could defeat them. No rebellion could rise against them. The Moon Kings ruled absolutely, and the temple feared losing power. Kale finished coldly. Vera's silence confirmed everything. Rage moved visibly through the throne hall. Not just from Kale. From the nobles, too. Because suddenly, centuries of history, looked different. Not salvation. Conquest. The runes beneath the floor suddenly blazed brighter. Then the abyss split wider open. A massive staircase slowly rose from the darkness below the palace, carved entirely from black stone glowing faintly silver beneath the moonlight. Gasps spread across the court. At the bottom of the staircase, a throne waited. Ancien. Enormous. Beautiful enough to hurt. Silver wolf symbols covered the black stone, while celestial runes burned across its surface like living stars. The moment Lyra looked at it, the mate bond exploded painfully between her and Kale. Both of them staggered. The celestial wolf stepped aside slowly, not forcing, inviting. The throne recognizes you. Lyra's pulse thundered violently. No. But deep inside herself, something ancient already knew the path downward. Mother Vera raised the moonstaff desperately. You cannot let them reach it. Kale's eyes darkened. Why? The priestess looked genuinely terrified now, because if the throne accepts them. Her voice broke slightly. The moon bloodline will rule again. For one long, terrible moment, no one moved. The ancient staircase glowed beneath the black moon, while silver fire flickered across the ruined throne hall. Nobles stood frozen around shattered banquet tables and broken marble pillars, staring down into the abyss beneath Ashfang Palace. At the throne waiting below, at Lyra, at Kale. And suddenly the court no longer looked at them like servant and prince. They looked at them like the return of something history failed to kill. Mother Vera tightened both hands around the moonstaff. You do not understand what that throne does. The celestial wolf's silver eyes narrowed. It remembers truth. The priestess ignored the creature completely. If they sit upon the celestial throne together, the old blood oath will restore itself. Her gaze moved desperately toward the nobles. Every wolf in the northern kingdoms will answer to them. Panic spread immediately. Several alpha lords stepped backward. Others reached slowly toward hidden blades. Because power shared among rival packs could be negotiated, absolute power could not. Kale noticed the fear instantly, and he hated it. Not because they feared him, because they were already looking at Lyra like something they might need to destroy. Again, his wolf snarled violently inside him. Mine. The possessive instinct nearly overwhelmed him. Kale forced it down hard enough to hurt. Lyra swayed slightly beside him. The closer she stood to the staircase, the stronger the strange pull became beneath her ribs. The throne below seemed to call to something buried deep inside her blood. Not with words. Recognition. The celestial wolf stepped closer carefully. Little Moon. The gentleness of the voice nearly shattered her composure. You were born for this. Fear twisted sharply through her chest. No, Lyra whispered. I was born cursed. The ancient beast lowered its massive head. You were taught that. The words hurt more than cruelty ever had, because part of her believed them instantly. All her life, the palace called her dangerous, broken, wrong. She learned to survive by making herself smaller, quieter, less visible. And now, suddenly, an ancient throne beneath the mountain remembered her name. It felt impossible. Kale sensed the panic through the mate bond immediately. He stepped in front of her slightly, shielding her from the court's stare. You do not need to do anything tonight, he said quietly. Lyra looked up at him in surprise. Most people demanded things from her. Obedience. Silence. Fear. Kale offered choice. The realization shook her more than the throne itself. Mother Vera's expression darkened sharply. She cannot refuse it forever. Kale's silver eyes turned cold. Watch her. The priestess inhaled sharply. You would risk the kingdom for her? The question echoed heavily through the ruined throne hall. Every noble waited for the prince's answer. Kale remained silent for several seconds. Then slowly, I would risk this kingdom for the truth. The words struck the court like a blade. Several alpha lords began arguing immediately. The prince has lost control. He's bonded to the eclipse-born. If the celestial bloodline returns, Ashfang falls. Then perhaps Ashfang deserves to fall, Kale said coldly. Silence crashed through the hall again. The black moon overhead cracked wider with silver light. And beneath the palace, The throne pulsed once. Lyra gasped sharply. A violent vision tore through her mind. A woman wearing a silver crown sat upon the celestial throne, beside a dark-haired king whose eyes matched Kale's exactly. Celestial wolves surrounded them beneath endless moonlight, while the northern kingdoms knelt in peace. Then betrayal. Temple soldiers flooding the palace. Chains covered in glowing runes. Blood across black stone. A child carried through hidden tunnels, while wolves screamed behind burning gates. Run. The voice shattered through Lyra's skull. Save her. The vision broke violently. Lyra stumbled. Kale caught her instantly, and the moment he touched her, the throne below the mountain ignited completely. Silver light erupted upward through the abyss. The celestial wolf lifted its head sharply. The bond is choosing. Mother Vera's face lost all remaining color. No, she whispered, because the throne was no longer waking for the bloodline alone. It was answering the mate bond between them. Silver light flooded the throne hall. The ancient runes beneath the marble blazed so brightly that several nobles covered their eyes while the black moon overhead pulsed like a living heart. Every wolf inside Ashfang Palace howled at once. Not in fear. Recognition. Lyra clutched Kale's arm hard enough to hurt. The mate bond between them had changed again. Before, it felt like heat. Instinct. Recognition. Now it felt deeper, like something ancient had wrapped invisible threads around both their souls and begun pulling them toward the same fate. Kale felt it too. Her heartbeat echoed inside his chest. Her fear moved beneath his skin, and beneath it all, her trust. Small, fragile, terrifyingly precious. The realization nearly destroyed him, because Kale suddenly understood something he had never allowed himself to want before. He wanted her safe more than he wanted the throne. Mother Vera stepped backward slowly from the glowing staircase. The throne is binding them, she whispered. One of the Alpha Lords looked horrified. Can the bond be broken? The old priestess did not answer immediately. That silence frightened the court more than words. Finally, Vera spoke quietly. Not once the celestial oath completes. Panic erupted again. Several nobles shouted over each other while guards tightened their grips on moonsteel weapons. If the prince ascends the celestial throne, the old bloodline returns. The temple loses authority. Kale's voice cut sharply through them all. Enough. Moonfire flickered violently across the shattered hall. Every noble fell silent, instantly. The prince stood before the glowing abyss like something carved from shadow and silver light. The black markings beneath his skin had spread higher now, curling across his throat like celestial fire trapped inside veins. Beautiful, terrifying, no longer fully human, and for the first time in years, Kale stopped trying to hide it. The celestial wolf watched him carefully. Moon Heir. The title no longer sounded foreign. Kale hated that, because part of him recognized it. Part of him had always recognized it. Memories flickered behind his eyes. Childhood nights waking with silver fire beneath his skin. The king forbidding temple healers from speaking about his condition. His father whispering once, when Kale was barely 10 years old, "Never let them know what you are." At the time, Kale thought his father meant weakness. Now he understood. His bloodline itself had been the secret. Lyra suddenly stiffened beside him. Another vision hit. This one stronger. A hidden chamber beneath the old palace. A dying king kneeling before a woman crowned in silver. Take her and run. The woman looked down at a sleeping child wrapped in black cloth. Babilira. The dying king touched the child's forehead gently. The bloodline must survive. Then screaming filled the chamber. Temple soldiers breaking through stone doors. Moonfire. Blood. The vision shattered. Lyra gasped sharply. Kale caught her immediately. "What did you see?" Her silver eyes trembled as they lifted toward him. "You were there." Kale froze. The throne below pulsed again. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head. "Your bloodlines protected each other until the last war." Mother Vera looked sick now, because every truth buried by the temple was rising into the light too quickly to contain. Seline suddenly stepped forward from the edge of the shattered court. Everyone turned toward her. The noblewoman looked pale beneath the silver moonlight, but anger burned behind her eyes. "You expect the court to accept this?" she demanded. A servant girl appears beneath a black moon, awakens an ancient beast, and suddenly the prince abandons generations of law? Kale's expression hardened immediately. Seline ignored him, her gaze locked onto Lyra. "You know nothing about ruling, nothing about power, and yet the throne chooses you simply because of blood?" The words struck harder than Lyra expected, because part of her feared the same thing. She had survived by scrubbing palace floors, by hiding, by enduring, not ruling kingdoms, not awakening ancient thrones. The hesitation flickered through the mate bond instantly. Kale felt it. The celestial wolf felt it too. "Little moon," the ancient voice whispered gently, "power does not choose the unafraid." Silver fire flickered softly around Lyra's feet. Not violent now. Listening. Kale stepped beside her slowly. Then, in front of the entire court, he reached for her hand. Gasps spread instantly through the hall. The moment their fingers intertwined, the throne beneath the mountain answered. A massive pulse of silver light erupted upward through the abyss, and every wolf in Ashfang bowed. The sight broke the throne hall. Royal wolves lowered themselves to the marble floor first, massive bodies pressed flat beneath silver moonlight. Then the guards' wolves followed. Then, the wolves belonging to rival alpha lords across the chamber. Onbeon, an entire kingdom's instincts, bending toward the bond standing before them. Panic exploded among the nobles. No, that's impossible. The wolves recognized them. Several alphas tried forcing their wolves upright. None obeyed. The beasts remained lowered before Lyra and Kale, trembling softly beneath the black moon. The celestial throne pulsed again beneath the palace. Silver runes climbed higher across the ancient staircase like veins of living light. Mother Vera looked devastated, because the court had just witnessed something undeniable. The wolves did not kneel for fear. They knelt for rightful blood. Seline staggered backward slowly. "This cannot be happening." Kale kept hold of Lyra's hand, despite every noble watching them. The mate bond burned, warm and steady now, not chaotic. Certain. And Lyra realized something terrifying. The closer Kale stood beside her, the quieter the ancient power inside her became. Like it trusted him, or recognized him too. The celestial wolf slowly approached the staircase leading downward into the abyss, then looked back toward them. "Come home." The words echoed through both Lyra and Kale simultaneously. Kyle's chest tightened painfully, because part of him wanted to follow. Not the prince. Something older inside his blood. Something exhausted from hiding. Mother Vera suddenly raised her moon staff again. No further. Temple acolytes immediately moved beside her, carrying glowing chains and moonsteel weapons. Kale's eyes darkened dangerously. "You still think you can stop this? I know what happens if I don't." The priestess slammed the staff against the floor. Silver runes ignited violently across the throne hall walls. The air changed instantly. Sharp, heavy, wrong. The celestial wolf snarled low in warning. Lyra's stomach twisted. "What are you doing?" Vera's face hardened with grief and desperation together. The temple prepared for this night centuries ago. Cold realization swept through Kale immediately. "Mother of gods." The priestess whispered ancient words beneath her breath. The glowing runes across the walls suddenly connected. A massive seal ignited beneath the throne hall floor. The celestial wolf roared violently. Moonsteel chains erupted upward from the marble like striking serpents. Chaos exploded. The chains shot directly toward Lyra. Kale moved instantly. He shoved her backward just as glowing silver restraints wrapped around his arms and chest instead. The impact drove him to one knee hard enough to crack stone beneath him. Pain tore through his body. The celestial markings beneath his skin flared violently black. Lyra screamed his name. Kale. The chains tightened, designed specifically for celestial blood. The prince threw his head back with a strangled growl as moonfire burned through flesh and bone alike. The court stared in horror, because the chains reacting to Kale confirmed everything. Moon heir. The title was truth. Mother Vera's hands trembled around the moon staff. "Forgive me," she whispered. The celestial wolf lunged instantly. Temple acolytes screamed as the massive beast slammed into the magical barriers surrounding the throne hall. The entire palace shook violently, but the barrier held. For now. Kale forced himself upright despite the chains crushing around him. His silver eyes found Lyra immediately. "Don't come closer." She ignored him completely. Fear tore through the mate bond so violently he could barely breathe. The sight of him chained hurt her, not because he was powerful, because he chose her anyway. Even now, even knowing what she carried. Mother Vera turned desperately toward the guards. "Take the girl below the palace before the bond completes." 2 guards moved toward Lyra immediately. The moment they touched her arms, everything went wrong. Silver fire exploded from her body. The throne beneath the mountain answered with a deafening roar. And suddenly, the black moon overhead split open with light. Silver light tore across the sky. The black moon split down the center like cracking glass, flooding the throne hall with celestial fire so bright the nobles cried out and covered their eyes. The palace shook violently. Stone pillars collapsed. Temple runes shattered across the walls one after another. And beneath the mountain, something ancient awakened completely. The celestial throne roared. Not metaphorically. The black stone throne beneath the abyss released a deep living sound that echoed through Ashfang like the heartbeat of a sleeping god finally opening its eyes. The guards holding Lyra screamed as silver fire burst through their armor and threw them backward across the hall. No one could touch her now. Moonlight swirled violently around her body, lifting dark strands of hair into glowing silver wind while the curse markings spread fully across one side of her face. Beautiful. Terrifying. Divine. The court stared in horror, because Lyra no longer looked like a servant girl pretending not to exist. She looked like something the moon itself had chosen. Kale dropped heavily to one knee as the chains tightened harder around his body. Blood stained the marble beneath him. The restraints were killing him slowly. Mother Vera saw it too. Pain twisted across her face. "Do not force me to finish the seal," she warned. Kale laughed once through gritted teeth. "Cold. Dangerous. You already did." The black celestial markings beneath his skin exploded outward. The chains cracked instantly. Gasps echoed through the throne hall. Moonsteel restraints were supposed to hold anything. But the beast inside Kale was no longer sleeping. The prince slowly rose to his feet, and every noble instinctively stepped backward, because something about him had changed. Not just the power, the presence. He looked ancient now. The celestial wolf lifted its head proudly. Moon heir. The title no longer sounded like prophecy. It sounded like recognition. Mother Vera's voice shook. "You don't understand what you're becoming." Kale's silver eyes locked onto hers. "No," he said quietly. "I understand exactly what you tried to bury." The final chain shattered. Moonfire erupted across the throne hall. Kale's transformation surged violently beneath his skin as black celestial markings spread across his throat, chest, and hands like living constellations. Several nobles screamed. Seline stared at him in horror, because the prince she loved had vanished, and something far older stood in his place. Lyra moved toward him immediately. The moment she touched his hand, the chaos stopped. Silence crashed through the hall. Kale inhaled sharply. Relief flooded his body, so suddenly it nearly weakened his knees. The beast inside him calmed beneath her touch. Not controlled. Chosen. The realization swept through the court instantly. She steadies him. The celestial wolf approached slowly through the silver fire, then lowered its massive head before Kale. A king, greeting another king. The throne beneath the palace blazed brighter. The ancient staircase trembled softly. Waiting. Calling. Mother Vera looked around the throne hall desperately. At the terrified nobles. At the kneeling wolves. At the prince and the eclipse-born girl standing together beneath the broken moon. And finally, the old priestess understood she had already lost. Not because the temple was weaker, because truth had returned. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. "If you descend to that throne," her eyes moved between Lyra and Kale, "the old kingdom will rise again." Lyra looked toward the glowing staircase beneath the palace. Fear still lived inside her, but something else existed beside it now. Belonging. The celestial wolf's voice brushed gently through her mind. "Little moon, come home." Then suddenly, a horn sounded outside the palace walls. Once, twice, 3 times. Every guard in the throne hall went pale. One soldier stumbled through the shattered doors moments later, blood covering his armor. "My prince." He dropped to one knee, breathing hard. The northern packs. His terrified eyes lifted toward Kale. They felt the awakening. Silence spread instantly. Then the soldier whispered the words that changed everything. "They're marching toward Ashfang." The throne hall fell deathly silent. Snow blew through the shattered crystal dome overhead, while silver fire reflected across terrified faces. The wounded soldier remained kneeling in blood-stained armor, breathing hard enough to shake. Kale stepped forward immediately. "How many?" The guard swallowed. "All of them." A cold ripple spread through the court. The northern packs were not a single army. They were dozens of rival territories scattered across frozen mountains and black forests. Many had not united beneath one ruler in generations. Some hated Ashfang openly, and yet tonight, they marched together. Mother Vera closed her eyes briefly, like she already knew. The Black Moon called them. One Alpha Lord looked horrified. They felt the throne awaken. Another noble staggered backward. No. If the northern packs unite under celestial blood, they could overthrow every kingdom south of the mountains. Someone whispered. Fear thickened the air instantly. Not fear of Lyra anymore. Fear of what she represented. Kyle noticed the shift immediately, and he hated it, because the court no longer saw her as a cursed servant. Now, they saw her as power, a weapon, a crown. Lyra felt it too. The whispers around the throne hall changed shape. Not monster. Threat. The difference barely mattered. The celestial wolf growled softly beneath the black moon. They come to kneel. Mother Vera rounded sharply toward the beast. Or to start another war. The ancient creature's silver eyes narrowed. You started the first one. Silence crashed through the court again. No one argued, because deep down, they all understood the truth now. The temple had not merely protected Ashfang from dangerous bloodlines. It had erased rivals. Kale slowly turned toward the shattered throne doors leading outside. He could already feel them. Thousands of wolves across the mountains. Moving. Answering the awakening beneath Ashfang Palace. The mate bond pulsed sharply between him and Lyra. And suddenly, he realized something terrifying. The packs were not coming for him. They were coming for her. Lyra looked pale beneath the silver firelight. "Why would they follow me?" she whispered. The celestial wolf lowered its head gently. "Because your blood remembers them." Another vision struck her instantly. A vast snowy valley beneath endless moonlight. Thousands of wolves gathered around a silver throne, while celestial rulers stood among them not as masters, but guardians. Then, blood. The valley burning. Temple banners rising through smoke. Lyra gasped softly as the memory shattered. Kale caught the change in her expression immediately. "What did you see?" "A kingdom," she whispered weakly. "Before the war," Mother Vera's face hardened again. "That kingdom drowned itself in power." "No," Kale said coldly. "Your temple drowned it in fear." The priestess looked exhausted suddenly. "Olda, you think restoring the celestial throne will bring peace?" Her voice cracked slightly. "The moment the southern kingdoms hear what awakened here tonight, they will march against Ashfang." The words hit the court hard, because everyone knew she was right. The southern kingdoms feared northern wolves already. If celestial blood returned, war would spread across the continent. Lyra's stomach twisted painfully. People would die because of her. Again, the old instinct returned instantly. Run. Disappear. Save everyone the trouble of choosing between fear and loyalty. The mate bond pulsed sharply. Kyle felt the thought immediately. His eyes snapped toward her. No. Lyra froze. She had not spoken aloud. Kale stepped closer slowly. You do not carry this alone. The certainty in his voice hurt more than kindness should have, because part of Lyra still expected him to recoil eventually. Everyone did. The prince lifted one hand carefully toward her face. This time, she did not pull away. His fingers brushed lightly against the curse markings beneath her skin, and instead of pain, warmth spread through her body. The black moon above Ashfang cracked wider again. The celestial throne below the palace pulsed violently. Then every wolf outside the palace walls began howling together. Thousands of them. The sound rolled across the mountain kingdom, like prophecy returning from the dead. The wounded guard looked toward Kale with visible fear. My prince, he whispered. The northern packs are kneeling outside the gates, and suddenly the entire court understood. The wolves had already chosen their rulers. No one in the throne hall spoke after that. The howling outside Ashfang Palace rolled endlessly through the mountains like the voice of the old world returning from the grave. It vibrated through broken marble, through silver fire, through every terrified heartbeat in the court. Thousands of wolves, kneeling beyond the gates, waiting. Note for Kale, for Lyra. The realization changed everything. The nobles no longer looked merely afraid. They looked cornered. Several alpha lords exchanged tense glances, while guards tightened their grips around moonsteel spears. The balance of power holding the northern kingdoms together for generations had shattered in a single night, and everyone understood who stood at the center of it. Lyra, the servant girl no one wanted to touch. The curse-bearer the temple tried to erase. The last moon daughter. The celestial throne pulsed again beneath the palace. Waiting, calling. Kale felt the ancient pull inside his own blood responding now too. The closer he stood to Lyra, the stronger it became. Not compulsion, recognition, as though some buried part of him had spent his entire life asleep, and only now opened its eyes. Mother Vera stepped slowly toward them. For the first time since entering the throne hall, she no longer looked like the untouchable leader of the temple. She looked tired, broken. You still have a choice, she said quietly. The celestial wolf growled low in warning. The priestess ignored it. She looked directly at Lyra. If you descend to that throne, there is no returning to the life you knew. Lyra almost laughed at the cruelty of that sentence. What life? The lonely servant quarters? The whispers? The fear in every room she entered? The court had never allowed her a normal life to return to. Still, the weight of what waited below terrified her. Kale sensed it instantly through the mate bond. He stepped closer beside her, beneath the silver moonlight. You do not owe this kingdom your sacrifice. The words stunned the court. Several nobles looked horrified. Even Seline stared at him in disbelief. A future king was supposed to protect the throne above all else. But Kale stood before the ancient staircase, ready to let the entire world burn before forcing Lyra into chains again. The realization shook her deeply. Why? She whispered. Kale looked at her fully then. No court mask. No cold prince. Only truth. Because no one ever chose you freely before. The tenderness in his voice nearly broke her. Silence spread softly through the throne hall. The celestial wolf lowered itself beside the staircase once more. Patient. Watching. Little moon. Come home. Another memory flickered behind Lyra's eyes. Her mother kneeling before the celestial throne, smiling softly while silver wolves slept peacefully around the palace steps. No fear. No chains. Home. Tears burned unexpectedly behind Lyra's eyes. Mother Vera noticed. And suddenly the old priestess spoke with genuine grief. Your mother believed the celestial bloodline could unite the North peacefully. Her gaze lowered. I loved her once. The confession stunned the court. Lyra stared at her. What? Vera's expression hollowed painfully. She was my closest friend before the war began. Her fingers tightened around the moonstaff. And when the celestial rulers refused to surrender their wolves to temple authority, her voice cracked slightly. Everything fell apart. The celestial wolf's silver eyes darkened with ancient sorrow. You betrayed her. The priestess closed her eyes. Yes. The single word shattered something inside the hall. Because suddenly Mother Vera no longer looked like a monster. She looked like someone who destroyed the people she loved, because fear convinced her it was necessary. Lyra's chest ached sharply. All this death, all this hatred, built from fear. The throne pulsed again. Stronger now. Kale inhaled sharply beside her, as black celestial markings climbed higher beneath his skin. The awakening inside him was accelerating too quickly. The celestial wolf noticed immediately. The moon heir cannot resist much longer. Mother Vera's eyes widened. If the throne is denied after the bond awakens fully, Kale's body suddenly jerked violently. Pain ripped through him hard enough to force him to one knee. Lyra dropped beside him instantly. Kale, silver fire, exploded beneath his skin. The beast inside him roared, and for one terrifying moment, his eyes became completely black. The throne hall recoiled in horror. Kale's body arched violently, as black celestial fire erupted beneath his skin, racing across his arms and throat like living shadows. Cracks split through the marble beneath his knees while a savage growl tore from his chest. Not fully human. The sound froze every noble where they stood. Lyra grabbed his shoulders immediately. Kale. His eyes lifted toward her. Black. Completely black. No silver left at all. For one terrible heartbeat, Lyra saw the beast behind them. Ancien. Hungry. Terrified. Not of the court. Of hurting her. The mate bond flooded with pain so intense it stole her breath. Kale was losing control. Mother Vera stepped backward in visible panic. The awakening is tearing through him too fast. The celestial wolf moved instantly toward the prince. Moon heir. Kale's breathing came ragged and uneven as black markings spread higher across his face. His hands shook violently against the broken floor while claws began forming slowly beneath his fingernails. The nobles retreated further. Some guards raised weapons instinctively. Kale noticed, and his beast reacted. A savage snarl ripped through the throne hall hard enough to shake chandeliers overhead. Several guards stumbled backward in terror. Lyra felt the killing instinct surge through the bond, not aimed at her, at anyone threatening her. The realization chilled her, because if Kale fully transformed now, the court would try to kill him, and he would destroy them first. Everyone back away, Lyra whispered sharply. No one moved. Kale gritted his teeth violently. Lyra. His voice sounded strained, barely controlled. Move away from me. No. Pain flashed across his expression. You don't understand. But she did. Through the bond, she could feel exactly what terrified him. The beast inside Kale was not cruel. It was protective, possessive, ancient enough to answer instinct before reason. And right now, every frightened noble in the throne hall looked like a threat standing too close to his mate. Mother Vera lifted the moonstaff slowly. If he transforms completely, the throne hall will not survive. Kale heard her. The beast inside him heard her too. Black fire exploded violently around his body. The prince screamed, not in fear, in fury. Silver runes across the walls shattered instantly beneath the force of it. The celestial wolf roared back. Enough. The command echoed through the throne hall like thunder. Everything froze. Even Kale's transformation halted briefly. The ancient beast lowered its massive head toward the prince. You fight yourself, because you were taught to fear your blood. Kale's breathing remained ragged. My blood destroys kingdoms. No. The celestial wolf's silver eyes burned brighter. Fear destroys kingdoms. Silence swallowed the hall. Lyra slowly reached for Kale's face, despite the black fire flickering dangerously around him. Several nobles gasped. Don't touch him, someone shouted. Too late. Her fingers brushed his skin. The effect was immediate. Kale inhaled sharply. The black fire dimmed. The beast inside him quieted beneath her touch like a storm finally recognizing home. The mate bond pulsed warm and steady between them. And suddenly, Lyra understood. The throne below the palace was not awakening because of power alone. It was awakening because together, they balanced what each carried separately. The celestial wolf watched them carefully. The moon throne requires both bloodlines. Mother Vera went pale again. No. Kale's silver eyes slowly returned, though exhaustion carved sharply through his face now. Lyra kept one hand against his cheek. "You're not a monster," she whispered. The words hit him harder than pain, because no one had ever said them before. Not once. Another violent tremor shook the palace. The throne beneath the mountain blazed brighter, and outside Ashfang's gates, the howling wolves suddenly fell silent. The silence outside was worse than the howling. Every noble in the throne hall felt it instantly. Thousands of wolves had stopped at once, waiting, watching. The sudden stillness pressed against Ashfang Palace, like the pause before an executioner's blade falls. A cold wind swept through the shattered dome overhead, carrying snow into the ruined court. Silver fire flickered weakly against broken marble, while the black moon continued glowing above the mountains. Then came the sound. Boom. A single strike against the outer gates. Not claws, not weapons. Something enormous. Several guards visibly flinched. Another boom followed. The ancient doors of Ashfang trembled beneath the impact. A terrified messenger stumbled into the throne hall moments later, armor covered in snow. "My prince." He struggled for breath. The northern alphas demand entrance. Kale slowly stood, despite exhaustion still visible across his face. How many? All of them. Fear spread sharply through the nobles again. Because rival packs did not gather peacefully. Not ever. The northern territories had spent generations tearing each other apart over land, bloodlines, and power. Some of those alphas had not stood in the same place without bloodshed since before Kale was born. Yet tonight, they came together beneath the black moon. For Lyra, the celestial wolf lifted its massive head slightly. They remember the throne. Mother Vera looked sick. Kale's expression darkened. If the gates remain closed, the messenger swallowed hard. They said they would kneel peacefully until dawn. His voice lowered carefully. But if the moon daughter is harmed, terror flashed across his face. They will tear the palace apart, stone by stone. Silence crashed through the hall. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. Moon daughter. The title felt unreal. Not because she doubted it anymore. Because all her life, the world called her cursed. Now, suddenly, strangers were willing to kneel outside a kingdom for her bloodline. It felt impossible. Kale sensed the fear and confusion, twisting through her instantly. He moved beside her again without hesitation. The court noticed that too. Every time the prince stood near Lyra, his transformation stabilized. The black celestial markings beneath his skin calmed. His breathing steadied. And every time Lyra touched him, the throne beneath the palace glowed brighter. Mother Vera saw the pattern clearly now. "The throne is binding your souls together," she whispered. Kale looked toward her coldly. Then perhaps it should. The old priestess stared at him. "You would abandon Ashfang for a forgotten kingdom?" Kale's silver eyes hardened. "A kingdom built on lies deserves to fall." Several nobles reacted immediately. "You would betray your own bloodline? The southern kingdoms will invade us. You would start another celestial war." Kale's voice cut sharply through them all. "No." He looked directly toward the throne below the mountain. "You started the war centuries ago." His gaze lifted slowly back toward the court. "And now you fear what survived it." Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable, because no one could deny the truth anymore. The celestial wolf suddenly turned toward the shattered palace doors. Its ears lifted sharply. "They are here." Boom. The outer gates shook again. Then, a deep wolf howl echoed directly outside the throne hall itself. Impossible. The guards near the entrance went pale. How did they reach the inner court already? Kale moved instantly toward the doors. Lyra followed without thinking. The moment the throne hall doors opened, frozen air exploded inward. Snow swirled violently through the ruined chamber, and beyond the palace courtyard, Thousands of wolves knelt beneath the black moon. Massive northern warriors stood among them, wearing furs, armor, and battle scars from every territory across the mountains. Rival alphas who once slaughtered each other's bloodlines now stood shoulder to shoulder in absolute silence, waiting. At the front of them all stood a giant silver-eyed alpha, covered in old scars, the Beast King of the Northern Packs, one of the most feared rulers in the mountains. The enormous warrior slowly lowered himself to one knee, then bowed his head directly toward Lyra. "We have waited generations," he said. The entire northern army knelt with him. The sight stole the breath from the throne hall. Thousands of warriors bowed beneath the black moon, not conquered, not forced, choosing. Snow drifted across the palace courtyard in silver sheets, while the northern wolves remained lowered around their alphas like shadows kneeling beside kings. And at the center of it all, the Beast King kept his head bowed before Lyra. No one in Ashfang had ever witnessed such a thing. The ruler of the Northern Packs was legendary, even among enemies. Half the stories about him sounded impossible. They said he once killed a rogue alpha with his bare hands after the beast slaughtered an entire village. That southern kingdoms paid assassins to avoid fighting him openly. And now he knelt before the servant girl, the palace once forced to scrub blood from marble floors. The court looked shaken to its core. Mother Vera whispered something under her breath that sounded almost like prayer. Kale stepped slightly closer beside Lyra. Protective, instinctive. The Beast King slowly lifted his gaze toward them both. His silver eyes stopped briefly on Kale. Recognition flashed there instantly. "Moon Heir," the Alpha said quietly. Kale's jaw tightened. The title still felt dangerous. The northern warriors behind the Beast King lowered their heads further in respect. Lyra stared at them in disbelief. "Why are you here?" The Beast King's expression changed subtly. Not fear, grief. "Because we failed your bloodline once already." Silence spread through the snowy courtyard. The celestial wolf moved slowly behind Lyra and Kale, silver fur glowing beneath the broken moonlight. The northern warriors visibly stiffened at the sight of the ancient creature. Then every one of them touched a fist to their chest in reverence. The Beast King looked toward the celestial wolf carefully. "The old guardian still lives." The ancient wolf's voice echoed softly across the courtyard. "Barely." Something pained flickered across the Alpha's face. "We thought the temple destroyed all of you." Mother Vera stepped forward sharply from the ruined throne hall. "We should have." Instant tension swept through the courtyard. Several northern warriors reached for weapons immediately. The Beast King slowly rose to his full enormous height. "You speak boldly for people who drowned the north in blood." The priestess tightened her grip around the moonstaff. "The celestial rulers nearly destroyed the kingdoms." "No," the Beast King growled. "The temple feared losing control." The words echoed harshly through the snow-filled silence. Kale watched everything carefully. The Northern Packs clearly knew far more about the celestial bloodlines than Ashfang ever had, which meant the temple spent centuries controlling history itself. Lyra suddenly felt exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Every truth tonight shattered another piece of the life she thought she understood. Cursed servant, moon daughter, ancient bloodline, a throne beneath the mountain, and now thousands of wolves kneeling outside the palace, waiting for her command. It felt impossible to breathe beneath the weight of it. Kyle sensed it immediately through the mate bond. His hand brushed lightly against hers. Warmth steadied her almost instantly. The Beast King noticed the gesture. Then slowly, the massive Alpha smiled for the first time. "Good," he murmured. Kale's eyes narrowed. "What is good?" "The throne chose correctly." The words unsettled Kale more than they should have, because part of him still feared what the throne meant. Not power, expectation, history, destiny. The things he spent his entire life resisting. Mother Vera suddenly lifted the moonstaff toward the northern army. "If you cross these gates, the southern kingdoms will call this rebellion." The Beast King looked completely unconcerned. "They already fear us. The southern kings will march. Then let them." The cold certainty in his voice silenced half the court, because everyone standing there understood the truth. If the celestial throne rose again tonight, war would follow. Lyra stepped forward before anyone else could speak. No. The word cut cleanly through the courtyard. Every eye turned toward her. Snow swirled around her dark hair, while silver fire flickered faintly beneath the curse markings along her skin. She looked fragile, young, and somehow more powerful than everyone surrounding her. I don't want war, Lyra said quietly. The Beast King lowered his gaze respectfully. Neither did your mother. Pain tightened unexpectedly through Lyra's chest. You knew her? The Alpha nodded once. She saved my pack during the last winter famine before the temple betrayed the Moon Throne. His voice roughened slightly. She believed the North could survive without fear ruling it. The celestial wolf lowered its head sadly. She died for that belief. Silence fell again. Then suddenly, a horn sounded from far beyond the mountains. Not northern, southern. The Beast King's expression darkened instantly. They're early. The second horn sounded moments later. Low, deep, foreign. Every northern warrior in the courtyard stiffened instantly. Kale's expression hardened, because he recognized that sound. The southern kingdoms. Too fast. The snow-covered mountain roads should have delayed them for days, maybe weeks. No southern army could move through northern winter territory this quickly, unless they already knew, Kale said coldly. Mother Vera looked away. The silence answered him. Rage swept visibly through the Beast King. You summoned them. The black moon changed everything, the priestess replied sharply. If the celestial throne awakens fully, the South will never stop hunting this kingdom. You invited invaders into the North, Kale growled. I invited allies. The northern wolves snarled violently, as if they understood every word. Another horn echoed from beyond the mountains. Closer now. The palace courtyard descended into tense silence. Lyra felt the shift immediately. Everything tonight had balanced on the edge of fear and revelation. But this was the moment history could turn into war. The Beast King stepped toward Kale slowly. How many southern banners answered the temple? Kale's jaw tightened. At least 4 kingdoms if the alliance remained intact. Several northern alphas cursed under their breath. That was enough soldiers to bury Ashfang beneath blood, especially if they arrived before the celestial throne awakened completely. Mother Vera lowered the moon staff slightly. They will offer mercy. If the moon bloodline is surrendered peacefully, the entire courtyard went still. Kale's voice became dangerously quiet. Mercy. The priestess held his gaze. You know what the South fears. Yes, Kale answered coldly. Freedom they cannot control. The Beast King laughed once. A brutal sound. The South fears northern wolves already. If they discover celestial blood still exists, he looked toward Lyra. They will burn every mountain kingdom before allowing another moon throne to rise. Lyra felt cold all over. Not because she feared death anymore, because suddenly she understood the scale of this. Her existence threatened entire kingdoms. The old instinct returned instantly. Run. Disappear. End it, before thousands die. The mate bond pulsed violently. Kale felt the thought immediately. No. His voice came sharp enough to startle her. Lyra looked up. Kale stepped directly in front of her beneath the swirling snow. You are not sacrificing yourself for people who chained you your entire life. Emotion tightened painfully through her chest. You don't know what war will cost. I do. Kyle's silver eyes darkened. That's why I won't let them make you believe this is your fault. The words hit harder than they should have. Because all her life, every terrible thing eventually became her fault somehow. The curse, the fear, the wolves, the eclipse. Now, the coming war. Kale reached for her hand again without hesitation. The moment their fingers touched, the throne beneath the mountain pulsed violently. Silver light erupted upward through the ancient staircase behind them. The celestial wolf lifted its massive head. The throne calls for judgment. Every wolf in the courtyard lowered itself further, waiting. The Beast King slowly knelt again. Moon daughter, he said quietly. The North will follow whatever path you choose. The weight of the words nearly crushed her. Kale looked toward the glowing staircase descending beneath the palace, then back toward the distant mountains, where southern war horns continued echoing through the snow. There was no more time. Mother Vera understood it too, her expression hollowed with exhausted grief. "If the throne awakens before dawn," she whispered, "the world we know ends." The celestial wolf's silver eyes glowed brighter beneath the broken moon. "No." Its voice rolled across the silent courtyard, like ancient thunder. "The world built from lies ends." Then the throne beneath Ashfang Palace opened completely. The mountain split with a sound like thunder buried underground. Ancient stone groaned beneath Ashfang Palace as the staircase descending into the abyss widened fully at last. Silver moonlight poured upward from below in slow swirling waves, illuminating the snow-filled courtyard with an eerie celestial glow. Everyone turned toward it instinctively. The celestial throne had opened. Not partially, not awakening, waiting. The air changed the moment it did. Lyra felt it first. Warmth spread beneath her skin where the curse markings glowed silver black along her throat and face. The pain that had haunted her for years suddenly softened. Not gone. Recognized. Like the throne itself, understood what she carried. The celestial wolf moved beside the staircase slowly, then lowered its massive head toward Lyra and Kale together. "Come home." The ancient voice echoed through the courtyard softly enough to ache. Kale stared into the glowing abyss beneath the palace. Something inside him answered immediately. Not obedience. Belonging. His wolf had stopped fighting the awakening entirely now. The beast inside him no longer felt chained or enraged, only restless, like it had spent years trapped in darkness and finally smelled open air. Mother Vera looked terrified. "If you descend those stairs before the southern armies arrive," her voice shook faintly, "the celestial oath will restore itself." The Beast King rose slowly beside the kneeling northern alphas. "Then perhaps the oath should return." The priestess rounded toward him sharply. "You think this ends peacefully?" She pointed toward the distant mountains, where southern horns continued sounding through the storm. "The South will never allow another moon throne to rise." The Beast King's expression hardened. "The South does not rule the North." Several northern warriors struck fists against armor in agreement. War hung visibly in the frozen air now. Lyra felt it everywhere. Fear, hope, rage, desperation. Entire kingdoms balancing on the choice waiting below the mountain. And somehow everyone expected her to know what to do. The pressure became unbearable. "I can't," she whispered. Silence spread immediately. Lyra stepped backward slowly from the glowing staircase. "I'm not a queen." The confession broke from her before she could stop it. "I don't know how to rule kingdoms. I don't know how to stop wars. I spent my life hiding from people who looked at me like I was poison." Pain tightened sharply through the mate bond. Kale felt every word. Lyra looked toward the throne beneath the abyss with frightened silver eyes. "All of you speak about bloodlines and destiny like they mean something," she whispered shakily. "But I'm still the same girl who scrubbed palace floors this morning." The courtyard fell completely silent. Then, the celestial wolf spoke gently. "No." The massive beast stepped closer beneath the falling snow. "You were taught to survive as less than what you were." The words struck deeply, because that was exactly what Ashfang had done to her. Milha smaller, quieter, ashamed of existing. Kale moved toward her slowly. The silver light from the throne illuminated the black celestial markings beneath his skin now openly. He looked terrifying beneath the broken moon. And yet when he spoke, his voice remained soft. "You do not need to become someone else to deserve that throne." Lyra's breath caught. Kale stopped directly before her. "You survived. Everything meant to break you," he continued quietly. "And somehow you still stand here worrying about lives beyond your own." His silver eyes held hers completely. "That is exactly why the throne chose you." Emotion tightened painfully through her chest. The northern warriors watched silently. Even Mother Vera looked shaken, because the prince's words carried something the temple forgot. Centuries ago, choice mattered more than blood. Another southern horn echoed through the mountains. Closer. The Beast King turned sharply toward the distant passes. They've crossed the frozen ridge already. Too fast. Far too fast. Kale looked toward the glowing staircase beneath the palace again. Then toward the armies approaching through the storm. There was no more time left for fear. The celestial wolf lowered itself before Lyra completely. Not commanding. Offering. Little moon. Choose. The silver light beneath the mountain pulsed once. And deep inside herself, Lyra finally stopped hearing the throne as a call to power. It sounded like home. The wind died completely. Snow hung motionless in the air above the courtyard, as if the world itself paused to hear her answer. Silver light poured upward from the abyss beneath Ashfang Palace, illuminating every frightened face turned toward Lyra beneath the broken moon. The northern alphas remained kneeling. The temple stood silent, and somewhere beyond the frozen mountains, southern armies marched closer through the storm. Choice. For the first time in her life, the decision belonged to her. Not the court. Not the temple. Not fear. Lyra looked slowly toward the glowing staircase descending beneath the mountain. The celestial throne waited below in silence. Not demanding. Remembering. A strange calm spread through her chest, because suddenly she understood something important. She was afraid of the throne because everyone taught her power only corrupted. But every cruel thing done to her tonight had come from people terrified of losing power themselves. The temple chained children. The court humiliated weakness. Kings hid truth behind blood and fear. And somehow, they still called her dangerous. The realization burned quietly inside her. Kale watched the change in her expression. The uncertainty remained, but something steadier existed beneath it now. Hostility. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head slightly. Little moon. Lyra inhaled once, then stepped toward the staircase. The entire courtyard reacted instantly. Several nobles gasped. Northern warriors lowered themselves deeper in reverence. Mother Vera closed her eyes in visible defeat. Kale moved beside Lyra immediately. Not leading, not controlling, standing with her. The mate bond pulsed warm and certain between them. Together. Lyra paused at the edge of the ancient stairs and looked toward the prince. You know this changes everything. Kyle's silver eyes darkened softly. It already has. A faint, sad smile touched her lips. Then, together, they descended beneath the mountain. The moment their feet touched the black stone staircase, the palace trembled violently. Silver runes ignited along the walls of the abyss one after another, illuminating ancient carvings hidden beneath Ashfang for centuries. Celestial wolves, moon crowns, kings and queens, standing beside beasts beneath a black moon. Not rulers above wolves, partners beside them. Lyra's chest tightened painfully. The history buried by the temple stretched endlessly along the walls around them, and all of it felt heartbreakingly alive. The celestial wolf followed silently behind them, while the northern alphas remained kneeling above. No one dared interrupt the descent. Even Mother Vera did not follow. Somewhere deep below, the throne pulsed slowly like a living heartbeat. Kale glanced toward the carvings surrounding them. My father knew. Lyra looked toward him. What? The truth about our bloodline. His jaw tightened slightly. That's why he feared the temple. Pain lingered beneath the words. Kale had spent years believing himself cursed, believing the beast inside him made him dangerous. Now every step downward revealed the truth. He had never been broken. He had been hidden. The realization carried anger, but grief too. Lyra reached for his hand without thinking. Kale looked at her in surprise, then intertwined their fingers tightly. The bond between them surged instantly. Warmth spread through the ancient staircase around them. Silver fire illuminated the walls brighter than before. The celestial wolf watched quietly. The throne accepts them. At the bottom of the staircase, the chamber finally opened before them. Lyra stopped breathing. The ancient throne room stretched impossibly large beneath the mountain, carved entirely from black crystal and silver stone. Moonlight poured through cracks high above the cavern ceiling, illuminating towering pillars covered in celestial runes. And at the center, The celestial throne waited, more beautiful than any vision, more terrifying too. Silver wolf symbols curled across black stone, while ancient moonfire flickered beneath the throne itself, like stars trapped inside darkness. The room felt alive, watching them, remembering them. Kale stepped beside Lyra slowly. Then both of them noticed the same thing at once. There were two thrones, not one. Silence spread through the chamber. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head behind them. Moon daughter, moon heir. The ancient voice echoed softly through the throne room. The kingdom remembers both. The sight unsettled Kale, more than war ever had. Two thrones stood beneath the mountain, equal, side by side. No throne raised above the other. No ruler placed beneath the next. The black crystal chamber glowed softly with ancient moonlight, while silver fire moved through carved runes along the walls like living memory. And suddenly Kale understood why the temple feared this place. Not because the celestial rulers were monsters, because their kingdom had been built differently. No chains, no hierarchy born from fear. Partnership. The realization felt dangerous. Lyra slowly stepped farther into the ancient chamber, unable to take her eyes off the twin thrones. The closer she moved toward them, the calmer the power inside her became. The curse was disappearing. No, not disappearing. Changing. For years, the energy beneath her skin felt violent because it had been trapped. Now it felt recognized, like finally breathing after years underwater. The celestial wolf watched her carefully. You were never cursed. The words echoed painfully through the chamber. Lyra swallowed hard. A lifetime of fear could not vanish in a single night. Part of her still expected punishment for existing too loudly. Kale sensed the lingering fear through the bond immediately. He moved beside her again, always beside her now. The realization warmed something deep inside Lyra, despite the chaos surrounding them. The prince looked toward the twin thrones with narrowed eyes. What happens if we sit? The celestial wolf's silver gaze lifted slowly. Truth. Awakens. Not exactly reassuring. Kale almost smiled despite himself. Then the ancient beast added, and so does power. The chamber trembled faintly. Above them, distant war horns echoed through the mountain stone. Closer now. The southern armies were approaching Ashfang fast. There was no more time. Mother Vera's voice suddenly echoed from the staircase above. You still do not understand what the throne demands. Lyra turned sharply. The old priestess descended slowly into the ancient chamber, carrying the moonstaff in trembling hands. Her silver robes dragged softly across black crystal steps, while exhaustion carved heavily through her face now. She looked less like a powerful religious leader, and more like someone carrying centuries of regret. Kyle's expression hardened immediately. You should not be here. No, Vera admitted quietly. But I owe the dead the truth before this ends. The celestial wolf growled low in its chest, but did not attack. Lyra studied the priestess carefully. You said you loved my mother. Pain crossed the old woman's face instantly. I did. Then why betray her? Silence. The ancient chamber seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Mother Vera looked toward the twin thrones. Because your mother believed the celestial bond should unite wolves and humans as equals again. Her voice shook faintly. And I was afraid of what the world would become if she succeeded. Kyle's silver eyes darkened. So you murdered an entire bloodline. I tried to prevent war. The celestial wolf snarled sharply. You created it. The words echoed brutally through the chamber. Vera closed her eyes. Yes. No denial. No excuses left. Only guilt. Lyra felt something strange then. Not forgiveness. Sadness. Because the woman standing before her looked haunted by her own choices. The priestess lifted her gaze slowly toward Lyra. Your mother's final command before she died, her voice nearly broke, was that you should never grow to hate the world that feared you. Tears burned unexpectedly behind Lyra's eyes. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head sadly. She loved too gently for this world. Silence settled softly through the chamber. Then suddenly, the throne room shook violently. A deafening horn blast echoed directly above the mountain. Kale turned sharply toward the staircase. They've reached the palace. The Beast King's roar thundered faintly from somewhere above. Battle cries exploded through Ashfang. The southern armies had arrived, and at that exact moment, the twin thrones ignited with silver-black fire. Moonfire erupted through the ancient chamber. Silver-black flames spiraled upward around the twin thrones without heat, illuminating the black crystal walls with shifting celestial runes. The entire mountain trembled violently, as battle cries echoed faintly from the palace above. Steel clashed. Wolves roared. War had reached Ashfang, but beneath the mountain, something far older was awakening. Lyra instinctively stepped backward from the burning thrones. The moment she moved away, pain ripped sharply through her chest. The celestial bond reacted instantly. Not punishment, calling. The throne room itself seemed alive now. Watching, waiting. Kale felt it too. The power beneath his skin surged violently toward the thrones like blood recognizing its own heartbeat. The black celestial markings across his throat glowed brighter, while his wolf paced restlessly beneath his ribs. The celestial wolf lowered itself before the burning seats. The throne remembers its rulers. Mother Vera stared at the silver-black flames with visible dread. "If you complete the bond now," she whispered, "there will be no hiding what you are from the world." Kale's expression hardened. There never was. Another violent tremor shook the chamber. Dust rained from the cavern ceiling. Above them, distant screams echoed through the palace. The southern kingdoms had breached the outer walls. Lyra's stomach twisted painfully. People were already dying. Because of this throne. Because of her bloodline. The old instinct surged again. End it. Run. Sacrifice yourself before more lives burn. The thought moved through the mate bond instantly. Kale turned toward her sharply. "No." His voice came rough with fury. Lyra stared at him helplessly. "You heard them upstairs. The South will never stop hunting us." "Then let them hunt." The certainty in his voice stunned her. Kale stepped closer slowly beneath the burning moonfire. "You spent your entire life surviving fear that belonged to other people," he said quietly. "I won't let you chain yourself for them again." Emotion tightened painfully through Lyra's chest, because no one had ever defended her without asking something in return. Not once. The celestial wolf watched them silently. The bond already changes him. Mother Vera looked toward Kale carefully, and for the first time, she smiled sadly. "You sound exactly like your father." Kale froze. The priestess approached slowly through the silver flames. "He loved your mother's bloodline long before the war ended." Her tired eyes lifted toward the twin thrones. "That is why the temple feared him too." The realization hit Kale hard. His father had known, not fragments, everything, which meant the former king spent his life pretending loyalty to a temple he secretly hated just to keep the bloodline alive. Grief twisted sharply through Kale's chest. Another battle horn echoed above. Closer now. The Beast King's roar thundered through the stone halls as wolves crashed violently against soldiers somewhere inside Ashfang Palace. Mother Vera tightened her grip around the moonstaff. "If the southern kings reach this chamber before the throne awakens fully, they will slaughter everyone tied to celestial blood." Lyra looked toward the burning thrones, then toward Kale. The mate bond pulsed softly between them. Steady. Certain. The celestial wolf rose slowly to its full towering height. "The kingdom waits." Kale exhaled slowly, then offered his hand to Lyra beneath the silver fire. "Not command. Not destiny. Choice." Lyra stared at his outstretched hand for one long, trembling heartbeat. Above them, war shook the palace. Behind them, history waited inside the thrones. And before her stood the first person who ever looked at her like she was something worth choosing freely. Tears burned unexpectedly behind her eyes. Then slowly, Lyra placed her hand in his. The thrones answered instantly. Moonfire exploded across the chamber walls. The celestial runes ignited blinding silver, and somewhere deep beneath the mountain, something ancient finally woke completely. The world stopped. Note silence. Stillness. as though the mountain itself inhaled and held its breath the moment Lyra's hand touched Kale's. Moonfire burst upward around the twin thrones in towering spirals, while celestial runes ignited across the chamber walls faster and faster, illuminating forgotten histories buried beneath Ashfang for centuries. The mate bond snapped fully into place. Lyra gasped sharply. Kale staggered beside her. Every emotion between them crashed together at once. Fear, grief, loneliness, desire, hope so fragile it hurt. And beneath all of it, recognition older than memory. The bond did not feel new. It felt returned. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head reverently. The throne accepts them. Silver-black fire surged across the chamber floor and wrapped around Lyra and Kale without burning. Ancient symbols climbed slowly beneath their skin like living moonlight. The transformation was beginning. Mother Vera stared in stunned silence. "No one has survived the celestial bond in centuries," she whispered. Kale barely heard her. Visions tore violently through him now. A king standing beside a silver-eyed queen beneath the black moon. Wolves sleeping around their throne. Children laughing through moonlit halls. Peace, then betrayal. Temple armies storming the mountain kingdom, while celestial wolves screamed beneath silver chains. A dying king forcing a hidden infant into a servant woman's arms. Protect them both. Kyle's breath caught violently. The infant was him. Another vision struck Lyra simultaneously. Her mother kneeling before the celestial throne, with tears running down her face, while the former king of Ashfang bled beside her. "They'll hunt our children forever," the queen whispered. "Then we make sure they survive long enough to remember who they are," the king answered. The vision shattered. Lyra stumbled hard. Kale caught her instantly. Their eyes met, and suddenly both of them understood the truth at the same time. Their bloodlines had protected each other for generations. Not by accident, by oath. The celestial wolf spoke softly through the chamber. The moon throne was always meant for two. Emotion crashed painfully through Lyra's chest. All her life, she believed she existed by mistake. Now, ancient history itself said otherwise. A deafening explosion shook the palace above. Dust rained violently through cracks in the cavern ceiling. Then came screaming. Closer. The southern armies had breached the inner palace. Mother Vera turned sharply toward the staircase. "They're almost here." Kale's expression hardened instantly. The moonfire beneath his skin intensified. His beast was no longer fighting the celestial bond. It was changing. Because of it. Silver now moved beneath the black markings across his throat. Not corruption. Transformation. The celestial wolf watched carefully. The throne remakes what fear tried to break. Lyra looked toward the burning twin thrones again. The fear remained. But beneath it, something steadier had begun growing. Not hunger for power. Responsibility. The people above were killing each other over a history built from lies. And unless someone ended that cycle, the North would drown in war forever. Another scream echoed through the mountain. Then steel struck stone directly above the chamber entrance. The enemy was close. Mother Vera lifted the moon staff toward Lyra and Kale. Slowly. "You must sit before they arrive." Kyle's silver eyes narrowed. "And if we do?" The priestess looked toward the twin thrones. "Then the old kingdom rises again." Silence spread softly through the chamber. The celestial wolf stepped aside. The path to the throne stood open now. Waiting. Lyra looked toward Kale. He held her gaze completely. No fear. No hesitation. Only trust. The kind she still struggled to believe she deserved. Then Kale spoke quietly. "Whatever happens next." His fingers tightened gently around hers. "You will not face it alone." The words shattered the last fear holding her still. Above them, war roared through Ashfang Palace. But beneath the mountain, the last moon daughter finally stepped toward her throne. The mountain trembled beneath their steps. Lyra and Kale crossed the ancient chambers slowly, while silver-black moonfire spiraled around the twin thrones like living stars descending from the sky. Above them, war thundered through Ashfang Palace. Steel clashed. Wolves roared. Men screamed. But down here, the world felt older than violence. The celestial wolf followed silently behind them, enormous paws soundless against black crystal floors. Its silver eyes never left the thrones, waiting, remembering. The mate bond between Lyra and Kale burned brighter with every step forward. No longer unstable, no longer frightening. It felt inevitable now, as if every path in both their lives had been leading beneath this mountain since the moment they were born. Mother Vera stood near the staircase behind them, watching with hollow grief in her pale eyes. "The moment the celestial oath completes," she said quietly, "the southern kingdoms will declare war against the north." Kale did not slow. They already did. The old priestess had no answer for that, because above them, battle already stained Ashfang in blood. Fear had chosen war long before Lyra touched the throne. Lyra reached the steps first. The black crystal beneath her feet glowed instantly. Silver runes awakened one after another across the chamber walls, flooding the ancient hall with celestial light. The throne recognized her. Emotion tightened painfully through her chest, not because she desired power, because for the first time in her life, something ancient welcomed her, instead of fearing her. The celestial wolf lowered itself completely before the thrones. The last moon daughter returns. Kyle stepped beside her, and immediately, the second throne ignited too. The silver-black fire surrounding it turned darker, edged with shadow and starlight together. The moon heir stands beside her. The entire chamber shook violently. Far above, a deafening crash echoed through the mountain. Then came screaming. Closer now. The southern armies had reached the palace depths. They were running out of time. Mother Vera turned sharply toward the staircase. "You must choose now." Lyra looked toward the twin thrones. Fear still lived inside her, but it no longer controlled her. Slowly, she turned toward Kale. "What if they're right?" she whispered. "What if this throne destroys everything?" Kale stared at her for one long heartbeat beneath the silver firelight. Then he reached up carefully and touched the curse markings along her face. His voice came quiet. "You spent your whole life being blamed for destruction caused by other people's fear." His thumb brushed gently beneath her eye. "I won't let you fear yourself for them anymore." The words shattered the last loneliness inside her. Tears burned behind Lyra's eyes, unexpectedly. Not grief, relief, because someone finally saw her clearly and stayed. Another explosion shook the chamber. The southern soldiers were almost here. Kale extended his hand toward her one final time. Not prince to servant, not ruler to subject. Equal choice. Lyra looked at his hand, then at the throne. Then, finally, she placed her hand in his again. Together, they turned toward the twin seats and sat. The world exploded. Moonfire erupted through the chamber in blinding silver-black light. Ancient runes ignited across the walls faster than thought, while the entire mountain roared like something buried beneath centuries had finally awakened completely. Above Ashfang, the black moon shattered apart. Silver light flooded the northern sky. Every wolf across the mountains dropped to its knees simultaneously. The celestial oath had returned. Inside the throne chamber, Lyra gasped sharply as power surged violently through her body. Not pain, memory. Thousands of voices, thousands of years. The celestial throne poured ancient bloodlines, forgotten histories, and buried truths directly into her soul. Beside her, Kale's transformation completed. Silver fire spread through the black celestial markings beneath his skin until shadow and moonlight became one. His silver eyes blazed brighter than stars now. Beautiful, terrifying. King. The celestial wolf bowed its massive head before them both. The moon kingdom rises again. Then the chamber doors exploded inward. Southern soldiers flooded the throne room with drawn weapons, and at their center, 3 southern kings entered beneath crimson war banners. The southern kings stopped the moment they saw the thrones. Fear flashed across all 3 faces instantly. Not fear of armies, not fear of wolves. Recognition. The oldest among them, a sharp-eyed ruler dressed in crimson armor lined with gold, stared at Lyra and Kale like ghosts had risen from the grave. "No," he whispered. Moonfire illuminated the throne chamber in silver-black waves while southern soldiers poured into the ancient hall behind their rulers. Steel glinted beneath celestial light. War banners snapped violently in the wind, rushing through the broken entrance. Yet none of them advanced, because the atmosphere inside the chamber had changed completely. The thrones were awake now, and the pair seated upon them no longer looked merely human. Lyra felt it immediately. The mountain itself recognized them. Every rune across the chamber walls pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ancient power moved beneath her skin, not like chaos, like inheritance. Beside her, Kale sat utterly still, beneath the silver-black fire surrounding the throne. The celestial markings across his skin had transformed completely now, glowing softly like constellations beneath midnight water. His presence alone pressed heavily against the chamber. The southern soldiers sensed it. Predators recognized predators. The celestial wolf rose slowly behind the twin thrones. The enormous beast towered above everyone in the chamber, silver eyes glowing like ancient moons. Several southern soldiers stumbled backward immediately. "The Guardian still lives," one whispered. The crimson-armored king finally forced himself forward. King Malric of the Southern Empire, the ruler responsible for uniting several southern kingdoms against the north years ago. Kale recognized him instantly, and hated him instantly too. Malric's gaze remained fixed on the twin thrones. So the temple failed. Mother Vera stepped slowly into view behind the kings. "I tried to stop this." The old king laughed once, cold, disgusted. "You should have killed the girl at birth." The words hit the chamber like poison. Kale rose from the throne instantly. The mountain shook. Every southern soldier instinctively lifted weapons. The celestial wolf growled once, and every wolf above Ashfang answered. The roar echoed through the mountain kingdom, like the earth itself, threatening war. Kale descended the throne steps slowly. Silver-black fire followed him. His voice came low enough to freeze blood. "Say that again." King Malric's expression tightened, but pride held him steady. "You think sitting on dead thrones makes you rulers?" He spat. "The celestial bloodline ended centuries ago." "No," Lyra said quietly. Everyone turned toward her. The moonfire surrounding the throne reflected across her silver eyes, while the curse markings beneath her skin glowed like sacred runes now instead of wounds. It survived. Silence spread through the chamber. The southern kings finally looked afraid, because the servant girl before them did not sound uncertain anymore. She sounded remembered. Malric stepped forward sharply. "The southern kingdoms will never kneel before moonblood monsters again." The celestial wolf snarled violently. Kale's eyes darkened, but Lyra slowly stood from the throne before either could answer. The chamber went still, because the moment she rose, every celestial rune in the mountain ignited. The ancient throne had fully accepted her. Silver light poured around Lyra as she descended the black crystal steps with calm, terrifying grace. Not arrogance. Authority. The southern soldiers backed away without meaning to. Even King Malric looked shaken now. Lyra stopped only a few feet from him. For years she had lowered her gaze whenever powerful people approached. Not anymore. "You came here expecting a beast," she said softly. The king lifted his chin defiantly. "And what are you?" Pain flickered briefly through Lyra's eyes, then steadied. "A woman your kingdoms tried to erase before I could even speak." Silence crashed across the chamber. No one moved. No one breathed. Lyra looked toward the southern soldiers behind Malric. "You were taught. Celestial blood destroys kingdoms," she continued quietly. "But look around you." Her silver gaze sharpened. "Who crossed mountains to invade another land tonight? Who marched armies toward people they feared before even hearing the truth?" The soldiers shifted uneasily, because deep down, they knew fear brought them here, not justice. Malric's face hardened. "Pretty words do not erase history." "No," Lyra answered softly. "Truth does." The throne chamber trembled violently, and suddenly, every celestial rune across the walls awakened fully, revealing memories hidden inside the mountain itself. The chamber walls came alive. Silver light exploded across the ancient runes surrounding the throne room, until the black crystal itself began projecting memories into the air like living moonfire. The entire chamber froze. Southern soldiers lowered weapons instinctively. Even the kings stepped backward, because the mountain was showing them the truth. Not stories, not temple records, memory. The first vision appeared above the twin thrones, in shimmering silver light. A peaceful, northern kingdom beneath the black moon. Celestial wolves walked openly beside humans, through snowy cities carved into mountains. Children laughed, while enormous silver beasts rested peacefully beside palace gates. No chains, no fear, no var. The southern soldiers stared upward in stunned silence. Then the vision shifted. Temple leaders gathered secretly around burning maps and moon-steel weapons. Fear filled their voices. If the celestial throne continues spreading northward influence, no southern crown will survive. We cannot defeat them openly. Then we turn the kingdoms against them. Another vision. Temple priests poisoning negotiations between the north and south. Forged attacks blamed on celestial rulers. Assassinated diplomats. Burned villages falsely marked with moonblood symbols. The chamber erupted into horrified whispers. King Malrek's face drained slowly of color. Mother Vera closed her eyes in visible shame. The mountain showed everything. The manipulation, the lies, the slaughter that followed. Southern armies invading celestial lands under the belief they were stopping monsters. Temple soldiers chaining wolves alive beneath burning palaces. Children dragged through blood-filled snow. And finally, the last moon queen placing an infant into trembling arms, while the celestial kingdom collapsed behind her. Protect her. Lyra stopped breathing. Her mother's voice shattered through the chamber with heartbreaking clarity. Even if she hates what she becomes. The vision ended violently. Silence crashed through the throne room. No one moved. No one spoke. The mountain had exposed centuries of lies in a single moment. The southern soldiers looked sick. Several lowered their weapons entirely. King Malrek stared at the fading visions with hollow disbelief. His voice cracked slightly. This is impossible. No, Kale said coldly from beside the throne. It's inconvenient. The words hit sharply, because every person in that chamber understood what they meant. The world had not been protected from celestial blood. It had been manipulated into fearing it. One of the younger southern kings stepped backward slowly. The temple lied to us. Mother Vera finally spoke. Yes, the old priestess looked shattered now beneath the moonfire. For generations, King Malrek rounded on her instantly. You told us the celestial rulers enslaved wolves. They bonded with them. You said they slaughtered southern villages. The temple staged the attacks. The chamber erupted into chaos. Southern soldiers shouted over one another while nobles from Ashfang stared in horror at the priestess who controlled their kingdoms for centuries. Everything they built rested on false history. Lyra watched silently from the throne steps. And, strangely, she did not feel triumph, only sadness. Because countless people died believing they were protecting the world. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head beside her. Fear makes monsters of kingdoms faster than claws ever could. King Malrek looked toward Lyra, again. This time not with hatred, with uncertainty. You expect us to trust celestial blood after this? Kale moved instantly. Silver-black fire followed him down the throne steps, while the ancient chamber trembled softly beneath his presence. No, the prince answered coldly. We expect you to stop murdering people for existing. Silence fell sharply. Then suddenly, a blade flashed through the chamber. One southern commander lunged toward Lyra, screaming, "Moonblood witch!" Everything happened at once. Kale moved. The celestial wolf roared. Southern soldiers shouted, but Lyra reacted first. Silver fire exploded from her body instinctively. The attacker froze mid-strike. Not dead. Held completely still, beneath moonlight itself. The chamber stared in stunned silence. Lyra looked at the terrified man before her. For years, people feared she would become a monster if she gained power. Now power stood fully in her hands, and everyone waited to see what she would choose. Slowly, Lyra lowered her hand. The moonlight released him immediately. The soldier collapsed, shaking to the floor. "I'm done watching fear decide who deserves to live," she said softly. Silence swallowed the chamber whole, and for the first time that night, the Southern soldiers looked at her not with terror, but respect. No one spoke after that. The Southern soldier remained collapsed on the black crystal floor, trembling beneath fading moonlight, while the throne chamber stood silent around Lyra. Respect had changed the room. Not complete trust, not peace, but something had broken tonight that could never fully be rebuilt again. Fear. The celestial wolf watched Lyra carefully beside the thrones. "Little moon, you chose mercy." Lyra exhaled shakily. Mercy did not feel powerful. It felt exhausting, because part of her understood exactly how easy cruelty would become now. One command from her could turn entire armies to ash beneath celestial fire. The throne would allow it. The wolves would obey it. And that terrified her more than the power itself. Kale sensed every thought through the mate bond. He descended the throne steps slowly, until he stood beside her again beneath silver moonlight. The black and silver markings beneath his skin glowed softly now instead of violently. The beast inside him had finally become quiet. Not chained, accepted. His fingers brushed lightly against Lyra's hand. Steadying, always steadying. King Malric watched them carefully, and for the first time since entering the chamber, he lowered his sword. The sound of steel touching crystal echoed softly through the silence. Several Southern soldiers followed immediately. Then more. One by one, weapons lowered throughout the chamber. Not surrender. Understanding. Mother Vera stared at the sight with hollow eyes. Centuries of fear dissolving in front of her. The old priestess looked suddenly ancient beneath the moonfire. "I thought I was saving the world," she whispered. The celestial wolf turned toward her slowly. "No." Its voice rolled gently through the chamber. "You were saving power." Pain twisted sharply through Vera's expression, because the creature spoke truth without cruelty. And somehow, that hurt worst of all. Lyra looked toward the old priestess quietly. "You could have told the truth." Vera laughed once, broken, and watched kingdoms tear themselves apart fighting over celestial blood. Her pale eyes filled with grief. "I was young when the war began. I watched wolves rip soldiers apart beneath black skies while kings begged the temple to stop the slaughter." Her voice trembled. Fear becomes righteousness very quickly when people are dying. Silence settled softly through the chamber, because everyone there understood. Fear had poisoned both sides. Eventually, the celestial rulers, the temple, the kingdoms. No one escaped unchanged. Mother Vera slowly stepped toward the twin thrones. Southern soldiers tensed instantly. Kale moved slightly in front of Lyra by instinct. The priestess noticed. A faint, sad smile touched her face. "Your father did the same thing for her mother," she murmured. Kyle froze. Vera stopped before the thrones and looked up at Lyra beneath the celestial fire. "You are kinder than we deserved." Emotion tightened painfully through Lyra's chest. The old priestess lifted the moonstaff slowly. Every soldier in the chamber stiffened. But instead of attacking, Mother Vera placed the staff at Lyra's feet. Gasps spread instantly through the room. The high priestess of the old moon temple lowering her sacred authority before the moon daughter. An entire era, ending in a single gesture. Vera bowed her head. "The temple's lies end with me." The celestial runes across the chamber walls glowed brighter, as if the mountain itself accepted the vow. Then, suddenly, the old priestess staggered. Blood spilled across the black crystal floor. Lyra's eyes widened. Mother Vera. A moon-steel blade protruded from the priestess's back. The chamber erupted in shock. One of the southern kings stood behind her, with shaking hands wrapped around the weapon. Not Malric, the youngest king, terrified, desperate. "No," he gasped wildly. "No more moonblood rulers, no more monsters." Chaos exploded instantly. Southern soldiers shouted. Northern wolves roared above the mountain. Kale moved toward the assassin king with murderous fury. But Mother Vera grabbed Lyra's wrist first. The old priestess collapsed heavily against the throne steps, blood staining silver robes black. Her fading eyes lifted toward Lyra. "Do not," she coughed painfully. "Do not let fear become your kingdom too." Then, the woman who helped destroy the celestial bloodline died at the feet of the throne she spent her life trying to bury. Silence followed her death, not peace. Shock. Mother Vera's blood spread slowly across the black crystal floor beneath the twin thrones, while the chamber stood frozen around her. The youngest Southern King stumbled backward in panic, moonsteel blade shaking violently in his hand. "I had to." His voice cracked. "She surrendered to monsters." Kale crossed the distance before the sentence finished. The force of his fury shook the chamber. Silver-black fire exploded around him as he seized the king by the throat and slammed him against a crystal pillar hard enough to crack stone. Every soldier reached for weapons instantly. The celestial wolf roared. The mountain answered. Thousands of wolves above Ashfang howled with murderous rage. The assassin king choked violently beneath Kale's grip. Fear poured from him now. Real fear, not political hatred. The terror of realizing the monster stories might finally become true. "Kale." Lyra's voice cut through the chamber sharply. The prince froze. The mate bond flooded with conflicting emotion. Rage, grief, the savage instinct to destroy anyone threatening what belonged to him. But beneath all of it, Lyra's fear, not fear of him, fear of what killing and anger would begin. Kale's grip tightened once. The Southern King gasped. Then, slowly, Kale released him. The man collapsed hard to the floor, coughing violently. The entire chamber stared in stunned silence, because everyone saw how close death had come, and everyone saw Kale step away from it. The celestial wolf lowered its massive head slightly. The bond restrains the beast. No. Lyra looked toward Kale quietly. Trust restrains it. The words settled heavily through the chamber. King Malrek slowly lowered his gaze, because he understood what had just happened. The celestial rulers were not dangerous because they bonded with wolves. They were dangerous because fear convinced the world they could never choose mercy. And yet, tonight they had. Again, Lyra knelt beside Mother Vera's body, slowly. The old priestess's eyes remained half open toward the thrones. She spent a lifetime fearing. Sadness settled unexpectedly inside Lyra's chest. Not forgiveness, but grief for what fear turned people into. Kale approached quietly behind her. "You do not owe her sorrow." Lyra stared at the fallen moonstaff beside the priestess's hand. She spent her whole life trying to stop this kingdom from returning. Her voice softened painfully. And in the end, she died trying to stop another war. The celestial wolf looked toward the chamber walls where ancient memories still glowed faintly beneath moonlight. Fear and love often wear the same face. The words lingered heavily in the silence. Then above them, the war horns stopped. Everyone looked upward instantly. The battle outside Ashfang had ended. A northern warrior rushed breathlessly down the staircase moments later before dropping to one knee. "My queen." The title hit the chamber like thunder. Lyra went completely still. The warrior lowered his head deeply. The southern armies outside the palace have lowered their banners. Shock spread instantly through the room. King Malrek stepped forward sharply. "What?" The soldiers witnessed the black moon breaking. The warrior looked toward Lyra carefully, and the wolves stopped attacking once the throne awakened. Silence crashed through the chamber again, because suddenly everyone realized something impossible. The war ended not through conquest, through choice. The southern soldiers looked uncertain now, ashamed, confused. No celestial ruler had slaughtered them. No wolves tore through the armies once the throne awakened. Instead, the Moon Daughter spared lives repeatedly. The youngest Southern King still knelt, shaking on the floor where Kale spared him too. Lyra slowly rose beside the twin thrones. Silver moonfire moved softly around her now like living starlight. The curse markings across her skin no longer looked like wounds. They looked royal, ancien, beautiful. Every eye in the chamber followed her, not because they feared what she might become, because they finally saw what she already was. Lyra looked toward the southern kings quietly. No more kingdoms burned for lies. The throne room itself seemed to breathe with the words. King Malrek lowered himself slowly to one knee, not forced, choosing. Then, the southern soldiers followed, and one by one, the chamber knelt before the moon throne reborn. The throne chamber remained kneeling long after the words faded. Northern warriors, southern soldiers, kings, alphas, enemies who marched to Ashfang ready to slaughter one another now bowed together beneath silver moonlight and ancient celestial fire. Not conquered, changed. Lyra stood motionless before them all. The servant girl, no one once allowed near the throne, now stood at the center of a kingdom remade. And somehow, that frightened her less than it should have, because Kale stood beside her. The mate bond pulsed, warm and steady between them beneath the celestial firelight. No longer chaotic, no longer painful. Home. The realization settled softly through Lyra's chest. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone inside a crowded room. The celestial wolf lowered itself beside the twin thrones once more. The kingdom remembers. Tears burned unexpectedly behind Lyra's eyes, not because of power, because those words healed something old inside her. All her life, Ashfang remembered her only as cursed. Now the mountain itself remembered the truth instead. Kale looked toward the kneeling chamber slowly, then toward Lyra. "My queen," he said quietly. The title hit harder than any prophecy. Lyra turned toward him immediately. Emotion flickered behind Kale's silver eyes, beneath the celestial markings glowing across his skin. Not duty, not politics, choice. He stepped closer beneath the silver fire. "You were never meant to survive as something hidden," he murmured softly enough only she could hear. "You were meant to be seen." The tenderness in his voice nearly shattered her composure completely. For years, Lyra survived by becoming invisible. And now the man standing before her looked at her like the world itself would be lesser if she disappeared again. Kale lifted one hand carefully toward her face. Even now, after everything, he still moved like he feared pushing too hard. Lyra leaned into his touch before she could stop herself. A quiet breath escaped him. Relief. The celestial bond flared warmly between them. The chamber watched in silence. Not because they witnessed rulers, because they witnessed two people who spent their lives taught to fear themselves finally finding peace beside each other. King Malrek slowly rose from his kneel. The old ruler looked exhausted beneath the silver light. What happens now? The question echoed softly through the chamber. Not just politics. Everything. What became of the North, now that the celestial throne returned? What became of the South after learning the truth? What became of wolves and humans after centuries of fear? Lyra looked toward the twin thrones behind her, then toward the people kneeling below them, and finally, toward Kale. The answer settled quietly inside her. "No more kingdoms ruled through fear," she said softly. Silence spread gently through the chamber. The celestial wolf's silver eyes glowed brighter. The old oath returns. Kyle stepped beside Lyra fully then. Equal, not above. Never above. The moon, heir and moon daughter standing together beneath the awakened throne. And for the first time in centuries, the celestial bond was complete. Above Ashfang, the black clouds finally began to break apart. Moonlight spilled across the northern mountains once more, while wolves throughout the kingdom lifted their heads toward the sky, not howling for war, for home. The curse marks along Lyra's skin softened beneath the silver light. No longer painful, no longer shameful. The thing she spent years hiding had become proof she survived. Kale noticed her touching the markings lightly. His gaze gentled. "You know," he murmured quietly, "they're beautiful." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Soft, breathless, real. The sound nearly destroyed him. Kale smiled for the first time that night. Not the cold, dangerous smile of a prince. Something warmer. Human. The celestial wolf watched them both in silence. Then, slowly, The ancient beast lowered itself before the twin thrones one final time. Its silver form began dissolving into moonlight. Lyra's breath caught. No. The creature's voice brushed gently through her mind. Little moon, you no longer need a guardian. Emotion hit her hard enough to ache. The celestial wolf looked toward Kale, too. Protect each other better than we protected ourselves. Then the ancient guardian dissolved completely into silver fire. The moonlight rose upward through the mountain chamber like falling stars. And for the first time in centuries, the celestial wolves were finally free. Spring came slowly to the northern mountains. Snow melted along the cliffs surrounding Ashfang Palace, while silver banners bearing the celestial wolf crest rose beside the old royal standards for the first time in centuries. And the kingdom did not fall. That surprised many people most of all. The southern rulers returned home carrying truths instead of war declarations. Some kingdoms resisted the change. Others tried desperately to bury the revelations from the throne chamber. But fear no longer held the same power once exposed. Not after soldiers witnessed the Moon Daughter spare enemies instead of destroying them. Not after the northern packs lowered their claws instead of demanding revenge. Not after the world watched two rulers choose peace when war would have been easier. The story spread anyway. The cursed servant girl beneath the black moon. The prince with celestial fire beneath his skin. The mountain throne that remembered forgotten bloodlines. And slowly, the old monster stories began dying. Lyra still struggled with the silence sometimes. Not fear. Absence. For years she lived surrounded by whispers, hatred, suspicion. Now, when people bowed their heads respectfully as she passed through the palace halls, part of her still expected mockery to follow. It never did. The servants no longer lowered their eyes around her. The guards no longer touched weapons when she entered a room. And the wolves adored her. Massive northern beasts followed Lyra through the palace gardens constantly now, pressing against her hands for attention like oversized loyal shadows. Kale claimed they loved her more than him. Lyra suspected he was jealous. That thought still made her smile unexpectedly. Ashfang changed too. The throne room once used for royal humiliation ceremonies became a gathering hall where northern packs and southern diplomats negotiated openly beneath celestial banners. The old chains were melted down, temple prisons destroyed, and the moonsteel weapons once designed to kill celestial blood were buried beneath the mountain forever. Some nights still felt heavy. Too many graves existed across the north to pretend healing happened quickly. But healing had begun, and for the first time in generations, the kingdoms were trying. Late one evening, Lyra stood alone on the palace balcony, overlooking the mountains. Silver moonlight spilled across the cliffs, while distant wolves howled peacefully through the forests below. Not war cries, home songs. The wind lifted softly through her dark hair. The curse markings along her skin glowed faintly beneath the moon now, instead of burning. Beautiful. Kyle's words still echoed inside her sometimes. She heard footsteps behind her. Then warmth wrapped carefully around her waist. Kale. Lyra leaned back against him instinctively. The prince? No. The king now rested his chin lightly against her shoulder, while silver moonlight illuminated the celestial markings beneath his skin. His beast had become quieter since the throne awakened. Not weaker. Peaceful. There you are, he murmured softly. Lyra smiled faintly. You found me quickly. You disappeared from dinner. His voice lowered slightly. The northern alphas nearly started accusing each other of offending their queen. She laughed softly. Kale closed his eyes briefly at the sound. Gots. He would never tire of hearing it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The mountains stretched endlessly before them beneath silver moonlight. Alive. Free. Finally honest. Lyra looked toward the sky quietly. Do you ever think about how close everything came to ending differently? Kale's arms tightened around her slightly. Every day. She turned her head enough to look at him. And you're still here? The question carried more vulnerability than she intended. Years of abandonment did not disappear easily. Kale understood immediately. He always did. The king turned her gently toward him beneath the moonlight. Then he touched his forehead softly against hers. There is nowhere else I would ever choose to be. Emotion tightened painfully through her chest. Not because the words sounded dramatic, because he meant them completely. The mate bond pulsed warm between them. Steady. Certain. Home. Far below the balcony, wolves lifted their voices toward the silver moon once more. And this time, the kingdom howled back together.